Mr. Gold, could you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We could have a moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces. Thank you.
Walter? All right, Mr. Mayor. Got the priority, please.
Good evening, everyone. I stepped through the budget meeting the other night and the whole thing, and personally, I wasn't really happy with the outcome. There was two people that really wasn't happy with the outcome either, and they voted as such. And I've done a lot of walk up to people in the town asking what they feel is going to happen on the 19th. And everyone that I've talked to says they're going to vote no. So I'm guessing that this third budget has a strong possibility of failing, okay? So after 3 tries, if it fails, that's $54,000 wasted, and then we'll go on to another $18,000 or $72,000 wasted on a budget that should have passed the first time, okay? If everybody on this town council, which I put a lot of faith in when you're all elected, a lot of faith that you do a good job. Now, I'm beginning to have some doubts, and that's a shame too, because I have a total 100% respect for each and every one of you, and I thought for sure in my heart that you'd be doing what would be in the best interest of the people of the town, okay, and our future. So if this new budget on the 19th does fail, then it's time for you folks to step up to the plate and make the right decisions so that we don't waste any more money. Because if we go to a 4th referendum, now we'll be into the new fiscal year, and that's not good. So I'm asking you folks to please search your minds and do what is right for the future of the town of New Milford and the residents. And one other thing that I would like to add, I noticed at the budget meeting that there was one member of the town council was absent. Unless it would be in an emergency, I feel that there should be a full accounting of all members of the town council in meetings of such importance, okay? Everybody should be here so that we know what everybody thinks and what everybody feels. It's not good for the town. So I'm asking you folks to please use some real good judgments, because some of the things that took place Thursday night, I don't believe are going to be in the best interest of the people who have already failed 2 budgets already. So I'm asking you folks to please step up to the faith and do the job that I put 100% faith into, each and every one of you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Eric, please.
My name's Eric Wildrick. I live at 6 South Main Street. I'm here to ask the town council to support the creation of a Bike and Trails Committee 2. No other committee in the town of New Milford advocates for the interests of the bicyclist, the walker, and the users of alternate modes of transportation. It is essential that this committee be created for the public's health and welfare. When I speak of the committee as an advocate for bicyclists, walkers, and users of alternate modes of transportation, I am specifically addressing the work that this committee performs as a public health matter. As thousands of vehicles pass through New Milford every day on its 200+ miles of roads, depositing ton after ton of particulate matter, hydrocarbons, nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, hazardous air pollutants, and greenhouse gases, it would be a huge blow to the general health and well-being of this community not to have its non-polluting citizens represented by this town committee. In closing, I am asking that the town council create a bike and trail committee too, and for the sake of the public health and welfare of this community, I ask that you make this a permanent committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Jackie, please.
Hi, Council. Thank you for your hard work. Jackie Eaton, 6 Redwood Lane. Sorry. Thank you again for your hard work. Like, as the more I get involved, I realize how hard and the time commitment, so I'm totally appreciative of that. But still, I remain confused, and I've been doing my homework, so the budget has got me and probably everyone in town completely confused. So I'd like to say that. I sat like this gentleman at the last meeting after the budget vote, and I'm like, wait a minute. So we've raised taxes, we decimated the school budget. It cost us about 26 grand to do now the second round, right? Or it's going to be the third round. We didn't add more to the fire, to youth, or VNA that everyone's like crazy about in town. Vote no, because we cut the firemen. They got all the firemen who we love and we support in arms to vote no, right? But you didn't add more to that. Slash the school budget. Didn't give more to fire or visiting nurse or youth. Taxes went up. So I cannot be the only one confused right now in this town. So just saying that, I don't know what just happened, but I don't know. It's wrong. So there's that. And then now for the Bike and Trail Committee, for good news. These folks have done a great job. First thing that I got excited about in New Milford in years was that, oh my God, there's river and there's business and they're renting kayaks and there's bikes and there's trails, and it was like, what an amazing, awesome, exciting, energized thing in this town for the first time in ages. And it's such a simple thing. So they've done a great job. I'd say, I don't know what to say, go Bike Trail Committee too, but yes, you know, they're doing a great job. It's bringing tourism downtown. I live in a lake community, so a lot of people kind of tend to hang by the lakes. It's bringing people into town. It's giving us a reason to go walk around our bike. So I'm all about it, and thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Julie, please. All right.
I'm Julie Bailey. I'm a longtime resident of New Milford. I'm a member of the New Milford River Trail Association, which is the private counterpart of the official Bike and Trail Committee, and that's been going for probably 8 years under the guidance of Tom O'Brien. And I'm also a co-vice chair of the Riverfront Revitalization Committee. And I want to come to speak tonight on the real importance of that Bike and Trail Committee. New Milford's entering an extremely exciting phase in which we have what one town council member in 2017 said, it was a once in 100 years opportunity to shape the future of our town. That kind of thing just doesn't come along every decade. We've rediscovered our beautiful riverfront, as you just heard. We're envisioning a 13-mile long trail along some of the most beautiful scenery and unexplored old 19th century industrial ruins you've ever seen. And tonight you'll see the revised Malone and McBroom preliminary engineering study, and we are at this point deciding, do we tackle the southern or the northern, the southern or the northern segment first. And that's just the beginning. As the Riverfront Revitalization Committee tackles together with the mayor, the town council, our land use commissions, and our residents the immense challenge of how to transform our riverfront while protecting its sensitive shoreline ecology to improve the quality of life for our residents, create jobs, and increase tax revenues. And that's just an incredible challenge, and we need all the hands on deck that we can get at this point. But just as we start focusing systematically on raising the state and federal monies that we would need to complement what our town is able to invest in the New Milford River Trail, decades behind some of the already completed long interconnected trails that other Connecticut towns have already completed. We're also, as all of us know, entering a period of severely constrained resources at the town, state, and federal levels. To help us figure out just how to fund that trail, which is the indisputed anchor of the riverfront revitalization, we need a strong and hardworking and competent Bike and Trail Committee, as they have evidenced to us in the past, with the collective knowledge and critically the Rolodex of who to go for developed over years to work with the town grant writer in identifying and producing successful public, foundation, corporate, and individual appeals. And as you will hear tonight from Tom O'Brien, the chair of the Bike and Trail Committee, that would be in addition to everything else that you'll hear tonight that this committee has completed and is doing. Finally, there are two strategic reasons that I see as important ones to keep that committee going. One, it provides the person power, the impetus, and the continuity to make that long-held vision of a river trail happen. And that is no mean trick to do. That's going to take us years, and again, that's going to be all hands on deck to do something like that. And secondly, and most importantly, a committee appointed by the mayor and approved by the town council has an official imprimatur, which a grassroots entity does not. This is a plus to potential funders, to bond providers who want to know if the town actually officially supports the vision of a town-long trail before they decide to commit millions of dollars to doing this. Whatever the expanded goals are of the Bike and Trail Committee as it moves forward, there's no doubt that the Town Council and the Bike and Trail Committee must be in complete agreement as to what those goals, short and medium term, should be, and what the performance metrics should be. How do you know that they're doing a good job? And this is something that every temporary committee that does something for the town should be asked to do up front, and there should be an agreement on what those goals and what those performance metrics should be. Finally, I salute the members of the Bike and Trail Committee, several of whom have been my really hardworking colleagues on the New Milford River Trail Association board for years. And I want to leave you with a final reason why our residents support the Bike and Trail Committee, if it did nothing other than get this trail going. Take a look at Brookfield's trail. By actual measurements,
Julie, you have a minute, please.
go in there. They had over 170 users from May to September 2017 by actual click counting, which was close to 4,000 per week, 546 per day, and the spending that each did resulted in about $277. And here's the key of this. 25% of those people who use that trail are from our own hometown. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Mr. Miller, with IPN.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to move on to the Thrift Mart. They called to postpone. So I'd like to move to the approval of the prior minutes, please.
So move.
For the,
May
can we break?
21st.
Yeah, can we break them up, please? Okay.
Move to accept special town council meeting minutes of May 21, 2018.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Two abstentions?
And 3. Paul,
Three?
did you just
Three.
abstain?
Yeah.
Yeah. Move to accept the regular town council meeting minutes from May 29th, 2018.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, what about the first responder?
We did them.
Yeah.
Oh, you did that?
No, we've got a couple more that we're going to do at the next
Sorry, I
meeting.
missed. I didn't know what you said.
Next is going to be the mayor's remarks. So first, good evening to everyone. First, I'd like to start off with a few things. First is I'd like to thank the New Milford Women's Club for a wonderful teddy bear festival last week. It was good to see a lot of our community out there celebrating and being part of the community, and I appreciate the Women's Club bringing that. There was a lot of youth there dancing. We had people from all ages, so it was wonderful to see. It just goes to show how our downtown is kind of the heartbeat of our community and how important that is. With that, I'd also like to mention to everyone here that there'll be some events on the green starting on the 21st. Bank Street Group is going to have their Thursday concert series on the 29th. We're going to start the theater of movies on the green. And then on the 7th of July, we're going to do our fireworks like we do every year. So we're going to continue to bring more events into the downtown, bringing more people to our wonderful downtown. I'd also like to thank the Chamber of Commerce, as they have done in the past years, for putting on the fireworks. Also, would like to talk about something that's very near and dear to me, and that is I met with Angie Chastain, who is on the Board of Education, and she told me that something that was very concerning to me and a lot of people, and that was 22% of our children in school need assistance to just get lunch. Another 20% of our children are just right above that measure. So when I heard that, I was very concerned. I met with not only Board of Education members, Superintendent Josh Smith, I met with the New Milford clergy, met with our Culinary Institute, Loaves and Fishes, our social services, met with a whole host of people as what could we do? Can we do anything? Is there anything we could do? And the great news is we can, and we are, starting July 2nd. We're going to be able to offer children in need that need food in the summer, which I found out is the most trying time for those in need, an opportunity to get a lunch. You can go to my Facebook page. You can see how to do that. You can contact Angie Chastain. If you know someone that's in need, please go there, fill out the forms. I can't thank the people, the volunteers that have decided to do this. I cannot thank them enough for doing this for our kids. Next, I'd like to talk about some of the road work that's going to be beginning. So one of the ones that we've heard a lot about is Long Mountain and Squire Hill Road. They're going out to bid this Thursday. The bid packages go out. We're going to start getting those back, and we're going to start getting to work on those. Also, if you noticed, Mill Street Bridge is being worked on as we speak. There's also the rotary that's on Still River Drive. We also have some band roads that we'll be bringing forward. So I want to thank the public for again giving us the opportunity through the bond package to begin our road work progress. I'd also like to thank our DPW for continuing to work on the affected areas. There's still a lot of debris cleanup that they've been doing. So I can't thank them enough for going out and cleaning the debris. For some of us here in the center of town and in the northern end of town, it's kind of been business as usual for a long time. But for those citizens in this area, they took a big impact, similar to our neighbors in Brookfield, in Southbury, and Newtown. So I can't thank the DPW enough. I'd also like to thank our community neighbors. I'd like to thank the town of Goshen for giving us their chipper for a while. And I'd like to thank Mayor Carbone and the city of Torrington for letting us use their chipper as we speak right now. As I said at the last town council meeting, I can't thank the public and the private citizenry enough for us pulling together through getting us through this. Next, I'd also like to talk about Family and Children's Aid. They are having a free baseball clinic with Major League Baseball alumni, who's partnering with our New Milford Youth Baseball and Softball, 9 a.m. noon at the high school on the 23rd. So it's a wonderful thing. We're bringing people together. Kids get a great chance to get a little clinic, and hey, they maybe will get an autograph too. So I can't thank Family Children's Aid enough and the New Milford Youth Baseball and Softball. Also, I'd like to say on 7/19, it's the 19th, or I'm sorry, 6/19, the 19th of June, we are having the budget vote. This is the third one. So it's important that everybody come out. The polls are open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. So please come out, cast your vote, whichever way that you feel that you need to, because it's your vote. It's your opportunity to tell this council and the government at large where you want us to go. And with that, I'd just like to thank the council again for everything you guys have done, and all of our volunteers and all our community. And kind of lastly, there's been a few people in the audience that have asked us for workshops, which would be important, and we heard you. So with that being said, I've asked the town attorney to hold some talks on New Milford government and how government works. So, Wednesday evenings beginning at 7 p.m., starting on June 13th at 25 Church Street, we're going to talk about Connecticut statutes governing municipalities. On June 27th, right here at the E. Paul Martin Room, we're going to be talking about the town meeting form of government in Connecticut. And that's what we have here in New Milford. On July 11th, same place, E. Paul Martin Room, we're going to be talking about the tie-in of state and local law into New Milford's town government. These are going to be approximately 45 to 60 minutes. Then there'll be questions and answers afterwards. I'd like to thank Town Attorney Matt Grimes for leading the charge and putting this together, so that we're trying to provide as much information we can to you, our shareholders, our taxpayers, as much as we can. So with that, I'd like to move to the next part, which will be the New Milford River Trail, the alignment study and draft preliminary engineering report by Malone and McBroom. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor Bass. Tom O'Brien, 134 Wellsville Avenue. I am the chair, or was the chair, of the recently expired Bike and Trail Committee. Before turning the over to Tom Schill of Malone McBroom, I'd like to lend a little bit of historical perspective to this project, if I might. And I'd like to start by reading from the minutes of a past town council meeting. And this is in reference to a project called Greenway 2000. And it says, Greenway 2000 calls for developing a trail along the Housatonic River from Youngsfield Road to Helen Marks Park and building a canoe launch. The Greenway is envisioned eventually to extend from Gaylordsville to the Brookfield line. Would anybody like to guess what year this meeting took place? All right, I'll go ahead and tell you. That was in September 28th of 1999, almost 19 years ago. I remember that clearly because I just moved to town. I had a one-year-old son. I read about it in the paper, and I was delighted to find out about this project and think how great it would be for kids. It got stalled for a little while. Not a lot happened with that process. Fast forward to 2009. I got involved in 2009 when I read in the paper again that the town of New Milford had received 2 grants from the GE PCB Settlement Fund. One was to essentially create that planned greenway from Youngsfield to Helen Marks. They were calling it the Youngsfield Riverwalk at the time. And the other was to make improvements at Sega Meadows Park on the north end of town. To me, that was revitalizing this plan. That's how I saw it. I came up with the idea to make Sega Meadows that Sega Meadows could potentially be that next little piece in this puzzle. So I made an appointment to talk to Mayor Murphy. She was very generous. I gave her the pitch that I think that old road through Sega Meadows could be the next part of the trail. She said 2 things to me. First thing she said, I can support this. I was delighted when she said that. Then she said, but you have to take the lead on this. And I was not quite as happy to hear that. I was really expecting her to say, you know, it's a great idea, but we just can't do it at the time. And then I could have just gone back to work and everything would have been great. Instead, 8 years later, you're still dealing with me here. So that's how I got involved. Just want you all to know that this plan was not my idea. This is a long-range plan that this town has dreamed about for years. So what we're trying to do here tonight is just move it another step forward. We recognize all the challenges this town faces. We just don't want this to disappear for 20 more years, okay? So And I hope if you've been to Seagull Meadows, I hope you realize what a beautiful spot that's turned out to be through a lot of volunteer efforts, Boy Scouts, Youth Agency, Park and Rec, Public Works, everybody. And that's just one of 3 or 4 other parcels of land along the river that could create this spectacular lineal park that we hope to achieve, if not in my lifetime, in my son's lifetime or my grandchildren's lifetime, okay? So we're just trying to keep moving it forward. All right. Just want to move forward. In 2016, under Mayor Gronbach, the Bike and Trail Committee 2 years ago was set up. Mayor Gronbach and Town Council, unanimous approval. And I know people have expressed some concerns about what we did and whether we were open and upfront. So everybody should have a copy I prepared. It says New Milford Bike and Trail Committee Progress Report. That basically lays out how we went about. Our Bike and Trail Committee had a large charge. We'll talk about it more in the next item on the agenda. But we identified keeping this forward as a major initiative. And so you can see a timeline there of how we went about choosing Malone and McBroom, how we requested funding, how the town council unanimously approved the funding of $192,000 for this study. And then it goes on with what Malone and McBroom did. They did an airplane flyover. They to actually map the terrain down to very small, whatever you call it. Numerous site visits. They did a tour with kayaks, which Seamus McKeon escorted them on. Numerous other things. And we've had a variety of public meetings to keep the public informed. Also, as a public committee, all of our meetings our minutes are all available online. So that's how that works. So we are delighted that we are able to show you what they have come up with. Next thing I want to say is we're now on our 3rd mayor in this process. I want to thank Mayor Bass for being so supportive of what we're doing. I've personally met with you 3 times, twice for the River Trail Committee, or the Bike and Trail Committee, once in terms of the overall. I really appreciate especially meeting with the Housatonic Railroad, which has generally not been that easy to work with when the right-of-way is involved, but you brought them into a meeting. I thought that was a great meeting, and I'm excited about that moving forward. I also want to acknowledge that Mayor Bass was upfront in every meeting about the budget situation that this town has, and he said right up front to us, don't expect any town money. So I want anybody who's worried about town taxpayer money in the near future going to this project, we know that's not going to happen. But this gives us an opportunity for other funding. Okay, so that's what I want to say. The key point of this study that you all are going to see is that this is a long-range roadmap to move ahead with a long dreamed-of plan for this town. So we're not asking to build any or all of it right away. We're not asking you for any money. We're just asking to keep this thing moving forward. All right? What you'll hear from Tom Scheel, who was the principal planner for Malone and McBroom, is 12 different stages that this plan has been broken down to, or 11 or 12, I'm sorry. And they're numbered from north to south because we consider Seagull Meadows and River Road to be the completed sections of the trail. And so you're going to see 1, 2, 3 going south. That's not to imply we want this one to be the first one, this one to be the second. That's how it's broken down to as funding opportunities become available. Every trail that I've ever seen, and I've researched a lot, has built their trail in pieces. And if you go up to Farmington, Simsbury, where the Farmington Trail is the Cadillac Trail, there's still a giant gap in Plainsville that you have to go around. So these things take time to build. But hopefully you'll agree that this is a great plan for the future of our town. And I heard, I think it was Julie Bailey mentioned Brookfield. So I just want to give you an example. What she said is absolutely true. The Connecticut Greenways Council did a trail census on Brookfield. And last year, I think it was between May and September of 2017, they had almost 172,000 trail users on that little 2-mile trail in Brookfield. And almost a quarter of those were New Milford residents. So this is a very popular idea. And also, so you understand, that trail cost $2.4 million to build. But $2 million of that was in federal money. And most of these trails have been built using federal transportation enhancements. Without this study, we can't apply for those. With this study, we are able, when funding becomes available, to now say, hey, wait, New Milford's got a plan, look at us. And we can take it to the COG, and we can request that we become a priority. So for that alone, I hope you'll consider this. Also, if you're not aware, I think most of you are, this year in the state legislature, they passed a recreational trails bond, which I think it ended up as a value of $3 million for these kind of projects. This makes us eligible to say, hey, you haven't spent a whole lot of money in Western Connecticut yet. We have a great plan, so please consider us for this. All right. So thank you for being receptive to this idea, and I'd like to turn it over to Tom Scheel, the principal planner from Malone McBroom, to take you through the study.
Great, thanks, Tom. Good evening, I'm Tom Scheel with Malone McBroom, and I'll give you a little walkthrough of the plan. We met with you on September 25th. My partner, Vince McDermott, gave the bulk of the presentation, and both the sad news and the good news. The sad news is that Vince's mother-in-law did pass away today, so he did ask me to do the presentation, and he needs to be with his family. And so I will not be able to match his skill, but I'll certainly walk you through the best I can to the plan. The good news for Vince is that the Connecticut Greenway Council did honor Vince in June with a Lifetime Achievement Award for the design of trails in Connecticut. So that was a formal Lifetime Achievement presentation, and we're very proud of Vince. I've been partnering with Vince for over 30 years on projects, and he does a great job, and he's been wonderful to work with, as always, on this project as well as others. So as Tom O'Brien mentioned, some of the great news is that there are some funding opportunities in place, and you're ready for funding now with this map, this plan. So you are well positioned to move forward on some capacity from a funding point of view, and if you should so elect to do so. And the Connecticut Greenway Council itself is very familiar with this project now. The state is very excited. Members of the administration, legislative members, we hear a lot about the trails in Connecticut all the time because we're involved in many, and people talk to us about New Milford, and you've really made a statement with this effort. So I think that's really great news. So I'll try and spend about 20 minutes or so walking you through the plan. Now, some of you, this will be a kind of a repeat because you saw the September, but we've advanced the plan. Some of you are new. So with no further ado, as Tom mentioned, there are 11A phases. That means 12. So we're running from north to south, and the design is running as a sequence, not a construction sequence, but a design sequence from north to south. That's very important because what we've done is we've studied each of these sections, broken the trail into different portions, and realizing that this is a long-range effort. We've worked on trails now since the late 80s and still looking to complete them. Tom mentioned, obviously, the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail is now maybe going to close their gap in Plainville, and that would be tremendous. So that process is something that is going to carry through for you. So you'll be able to carefully study each of these sections, decide which you would like to move forward with, which have hurdles. There's the big four considerations, which would be obviously the phasing, the cost, the regulatory, and the easements and rights of way over the different properties. So this particular trail system, different distances have been bandied about. We have, we'll walk you through it, but we're calling it a 9.5 mile long trail, but there are sections that double up, that lengthen it out. And as Vince alluded to in September, we did put a slide together that talked about the types of trails that are part of the system. There's really 5 types, and you're ranging from a shared use path, which is physically separated from vehicular traffic. A side path, is a sort of like a sidewalk that's shared with the road. The sidewalk itself, sharrows are lane markings for bikes to ride with signage on the road and sharing the road. And soft trails are part of the system as well. We have a whole complement of paths to support pedestrian and bicycle activity. You've had a lot of conversations as part of the outreach. The committee members have done a tremendous outreach program in terms of various people along the way. And we're going to start from the north, from Boardman. So Wasago Meadows is to your left at Boardman Road, and Medenstill is about a mile of property through the planning of the complex. And it's gone very nicely with Dr. Pai. We've had a number of meetings with him. The yellow takes you on through to some red boardwalks. The issue would be obviously rights to construct a trail over the Medenstill property with temporary and permanent easements. And we have our first of 5 railroad crossings to deal with in this location. And Parker Rodriguez, I think, was present in our March meeting from General Counsel of the rail. Very supportive of the project. We're staying in touch with Parker and Housatonic Rail. The Boardman Road has the bridge and the railroad at that northern section. And you can see the railroad right at Boardman Road, and the drop off to the river. There's very beautiful woodlands in through here. We did some photo simulation throughout the project, and these are illustrated on the plans along with the associated budgets. So you're picking up the grade, working with the crossing to make a safe crossing, working with the signals of the crossing is important. A paved trail 10 feet wide would be winding through the woods. Now we're proceeding south through some very pleasant woods. This fairly large section of land is talked about being possibly transferred to the town because of its narrow nature and undevelopable portions for other activities. But we did a little photo simulation of the trail coming through here. When we talked in late 2016 and interviewed for the project, we thought it was very important to speak about the heritage of New Milford, to talk about your history and how to incorporate that in the trail. And we teamed with Historical Perspectives, Inc. to perform Phase 1 archaeological studies for both the north and the south section. And this is the study effort is quite impressive that Feline Schneiderman put together for the project. And this illustrates a potential sign talking about what's happening with the history, the pre-contact civilizations, colonial civilizations, industrial development, etc. So it's not just a beautiful river trail. We see it, for you to take advantage and to tell your story. Oops. Excuse me. Phase 2, once we take that first mile, and in the little section on the right, you see the map, okay, with the Housatonic River. And the trail itself will come to a small parking lot at Medenstill for the use, maybe an 8 to 10 space parking lot. But the red is what we call the pinch point, and that's one of the more challenging parts of the trail. You can see opposite the power plant, the Agavian walls of I guess that's Boardman Road at this point. No, this could be Housatonic Avenue at this point. Your road changes names 3 times. So in this particular point, we have about a third of a mile of tightly constricted space. And the river is, of course, powerful. The grades are difficult in here. There's some utilities to pay attention to. And we have to keep on going to the south. The preliminary engineering planning for this particular point incorporates a bin wall system, sort of a 2-tier wall system that's going to take advantage of this grade situation that exists out there presently. The river is very, very beautiful here. And the system's sort of like a step down for a wall that would support the road and a wall that would support the trail. You would have an opportunity to construct a facility that would carry pedestrians and bikers along this very beautiful section. And we're very excited about this. This is a costly section. We'll get into some ballpark costs for you as we summarize things, but that's a very important consideration. You can see the numbers 2, 3, and 4. So we're talking about phases here. And the river, of course, is winding through beautiful land. This is Wanapee Island, the picture to the left. Wanapee Island is historically a fording point for colonials to cross the river from the east to the west, west to the east. It was part of the Indian culture, pre-contact civilization. It is hillocks through wetlands. It's quite an intriguing property. It's owned by Eversource right now. And we are bringing the trail through Wanapee Island. It's a little less than a mile in length. There's been a lot of discussion with the neighbors, with Housatonic Avenue in this particular portion. Right where the number 3 is, there's a complex of about 18 to 20 properties that line Housatonic Avenue. We've had some very intense discussions with the neighbors, a lot of discussion about how to bring the trail through here. When you see the number 4, that's right at Helen Marks Park. Okay, so the goal is to carry people through this section from the pinch point over to section 4, which is Youngs Field, and the trail that's currently built in place. So the plan right now is it's been presented in various forms, but in conjunction with discussions with the committee and yourselves, the plan is to carry the trail along the river. Carry the trail along the river. There are, let's see if we can show you here. Get back here. There are linkages that would require a concrete boardwalk system over a backwater that would carry adjacent to the river. That would be about 180 feet in length. There would be a bridge that would be constructed over the Aspetuck River close to the pump station. You can see the way the green line sort of jogs up towards the road, which is Housatonic Avenue itself. And then the trail would wind through town property and then through Superior, in the back of Superior property, which is a utility distributor, and tie into Section 4, which is the Youngs Field Trail in place. Now, Youngs Field Trail, you're taking advantage of that now. I think it's quite a nice signal start for your project. You know, we're connecting now Sega Meadows to this with our trail system in this northern section. Youngs Field is in discussions with what's happening with all your town-wide planning, and it's a good time to point out that when you talk about the trail, the river trail, we would like to have your support for the trail. We would like the plan of conservation and development to incorporate the trail, and you're doing planning studies for the downtown, and it would be nice to incorporate this trail into those planning studies. Our trail here would carry you up to Patriots Way, up to Route 202, up towards the railroad. It would link into the downtown. It would be part of the park itself, and it would traverse a sloped hillside. You can see that in the bottom left. There are stairs there now. And so we would put an accessible route, a ramp system, adjacent to those stairs and keep the stairs for people who can walk up and down. And tie over right into Route 202. Now, this section would require a crossing of 202. We have been in contact with the Department of Transportation. They have a plan in place. They have signal improvements in place for the railroad. We have coordinated with them, and Dan Stanton's been a great help throughout the whole project, working with what DOT has planned in that area. So the idea is to get a safe crossing of the trail across Route 202, and then bring you to West Street. Now, West Street is an enclave of homes on a 20 to 22-foot wide street. There's a lot of historical background and character with some of the older buildings on the site of West Street. And the purple line would be a sidewalk used for the trail, and you would have signs for bikers to ride as sharrows on West Street itself. There's like a little gray line that sort of dives up the map, and that's a signal for a great brook. There's a crossing. West Street crosses a brook there, and there is a shot in the lower left of the bridge that is in place. So we would use that sidewalk system. We would cross over and use that sidewalk system, and then carry it towards the treatment plant, which is three little dots to the end of the right-hand side of the purple and carrying over to Hidden Treasures Park. So there's sidewalks in place. There is a need to improve them, and there is a need to perform signage. There's a great opportunity for historical connectivity and linkage to the downtown through West Street. So that's kind of an exciting little piece. It's short. It's only about a half a mile. And it brings you to this gem of a property, Hidden Treasure. And we're working with Lisa, with the bike committee on, and Seamus and Tom O'Brien and Kathy. Everyone has been very excited about all the opportunities here, but this is coming up on the big showcase of the trail. The walk through Hidden Treasure is up to the river itself. Again, another little short section. There is a trail there now, currently opposite the treatment plant. There's a gate in place. So we envision a small parking lot to support activity and connectivity to the park and to the trail. And then as the trail winds towards the old power plant and the water tank, which are the little yellow line kind of loops, through grades, et cetera, in close proximity to those facilities, you would have an approach to the river itself. And this would be our paved 10-foot wide path with an accessible route, with connectivity to the river for the various canoes and launches. And you would have the river, the beautiful river with the small dam. And the plan here is to cross the river with a two-span system that would cross from Hidden Treasure to a little island. The power plant, the old power plant connects to that. And that's I think about 160, 170 feet. And then a long 260-foot span. You can do a clear span over the Housatonic River. At this point, you can see the picture at the bottom left is a view from the west side. How beautiful that is, even in the wintertime. It's spectacular. And the goal of creating a facility here that will cross the river and carry you from Sega Meadows to the Brookfield Town Line is critical to the project. We considered various alternatives. All throughout this planning process, there were many, many alternatives. We talked to the railroad about utilizing the railroad rights-of-way, the bridge, railroad bridge. But that was not going to work out very well. We talked about the options of different alignments for the bridging itself. And we've settled on an accessible route that brings you up to Pickett's District Road, up to the Pettibone School, with proper elevations that would satisfy various regulatory issues that would be associated with that crossing. And Kimberly Clark is obviously very, very important to us, to you, to Connecticut, and to the United States. A wonderful company. They have been very supportive of the trail. We know there's plans to improve some of the road. We believe the trail can be incorporated as improvements alongside with any improvements that you would perform associated with the road, if that's what you're going to do. There is a private railroad crossing there, one of the railroad crossings which services the manufacturing facility itself. You have linkages to the dog park, you have linkages to the ball fields, the Pettibone School itself, and then you would carry yourself down to the town fields, the ball fields, and link up to some beautiful land in phase 9. Phase 8 is pretty long. It's like a little over a mile, and you would get a nice sense for what's happening with Kimberly Clark. The employees would be able to jump on the trail. We did do a graphic of what's really happening out there now with the road condition, the parking lot itself, and some of you may have seen this graphic fitting the trail in right adjacent to the road into the parking. And that would go down alongside the road, the straight road, all the way down to there's an access road to, I guess they're Little League or softball fields, not sure which, but you have an athletic field complex. And this is an area that's really interesting and really fascinating because you're getting back down to the river again. The Housatonic River is the dark body running on the top of the map. And then the kind of sinuous gray is the Still River, which joins it. at Lover's Leap State Park. And we have a railroad crossing in the vicinity of what's labeled, you can see, in the Nature Conservancy meadow. That picture in the lower left gives you sort of a hint of how beautiful this meadow is. The Nature Conservancy is supportive of the project, has worked with us on the route. The railroad is supportive of the crossing in this point to the issue of relocating an existing crossing, which is the signage in place to a little bit away from them towards the town field, so you would have a greater connectivity to the town fields. That new crossing would require legislative approval by the General Assembly. But that would have to be a political improvement for the trail itself. The little red dashed line would be a nice bridge over the, and you can see in the upper right, the abutments for a former railroad kind of connection are in place. There's no active rail to Lover's Leap, but there was a side rail serving all the manufacturing facilities. And Lover's Leap is just a fantastic linkage. It's got all the pre-contact and colonial history revolving and swirling around it. And it's just a very dynamic space with the lenticular bridge, the park itself. We thought it was very important to connect to Lover's Leap, and this section 9A is a short little sidewalk that comes from Still River Drive and ties right up into the Green Line, which is an existing trail system for the park. So you have two linkage points to Lover's Leap as part of this trail system. And you're heading towards, on the bottom right, a starred area. That is the railroad crossing Still River Road. So we need to put in a pedestrian crossing at that point. So that's one of the discussions items we had with Housatonic Rail, and they were very supportive. They said there's an active rail in place now, there's a crossing, so we would just upgrade that. Phase 10, through wonderful Harry Brook Park. So we had a number of options and alternatives as we considered. We first thought that it would be very useful to consider bringing the trail right down alongside the railroad, which is the eastern boundary of Harry Brook Park. And we then found out that the railroad was not conducive to really having the trail really close to their facility. The crossings will probably work out, but bringing the trail right there again against the rail is not something that they're really supportive of. So we're bringing the trail through Harry Brook Park. We brought it through the existing trail system, met with Harry Brook after the March 20th meeting, public meeting with the community. And Harry Brook asked that we consider bringing the trail on the west side of the park. We would bring the trail down Lanesville Road, come in off Lanesville Road, traverse through some sections along the Still River. It's actually very dynamic. The Still River rushes down through there. It's quite scenic. We would build a bridge over the river itself, come into the bottom, I guess that would be the southwest corner of Harry Brook Park, which is lawn and landscaping, connect over there into Candlewood Park, which is property right to the right. And it brings us to phase 11, which is going all the way to the town line from Harry Brook Park. And the yellow line is a combination of a path as you look from the left and you go to the right. The left is Candlewood Valley Country Club. We know it's an active country club. We know they have certain things going on with rights and easements and controls over the public use of the property. But the plan, the long-range plan, is to acquire the ability to place the trail over Candlewood Valley. Okay, so now this is where your timing comes in. Who knows how long that would take to actually come through with that. But it's part of the plan. And it is a very beautiful property. Physically, you can accommodate a trail. It's a question of the easements, the rights of way, and the politics associated with the costs of these improvements. Now, as you come to the southern terminus of Candlewood, you come out on Erickson Road, a connection to Erickson Road, which would change to Aldrich Road. And we have two systems going on there. The yellow would be a bike route on the road itself. So that would be Sharrows. So it would be signed for markings for people to ride their bike up and down the road at Aldrich. But we also thought it was a great opportunity to take advantage of the Still River itself. That winding sinuous gray line is the river itself. So we'd like you to be able to have the opportunity to have a soft walking path along there. It's long. It's over 2 miles to the town line. And you could have a nice meandering walk through a beautiful meadow system and wetland system, subject to flooding in the spring, but active and available for your use for many months out of the year. And you know, this is a little bit of a highlight of that trail itself. Soft trail along the Still River floodplain meadows. There's about 5 property owners through there. There's the DOT, 1 or 2 private owners, and the Winnetagog Land Trust, who discussions have already been had on. They are supportive of the trail. And you can see the river itself just has such a really interesting character. You know, the meadow itself is, this is a picture of the meadow at a certain time of year. And, you know, the idea of having a soft trail winding through here was quite attractive. So we put together the report. It's dated June 7th. We're going to meet with the committee again to have them adopted. And we have a number of charts available in the report. We have the trail phase summary, which talks about the different types of surfaces, the lengths, the phases itself, which I've just walked you through. We have a table of the potential easements or acquisitions. A number of these parcels are owned by same property owners, such as, I think back in the top, Housatonic Real Estate LLC is the Medenstill folks. So there's 4 different parcels associated with that. But then we wanted to document what your needs are relative to that issue, a very important issue of gaining rights to build the trail. The third triad of issues is the regulatory issues, which will be associated with floodplain and wetlands and zoning, both from a local and non-local aspect. So we wanted to document what your various permits would be needed as you walk through this. We'll be supportive of that. We believe all of them are achievable, but they all require work. We developed conceptual budgets for improvements. We have more detailed sheets, but we wanted to give you the broad brush for the different phases. And, you know, in a sum, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to build a trail. It's a vision. But you're going to chip away at this over time. You're going to take advantage of funding opportunities that present themselves. You're going to do this in conjunction with capital improvements for your town. You're going to plan this thing smartly. You know, and if you are able to grasp the vision and have stick-to-itness on it and fit it in with the rest of your dynamic needs in the town to make the community grow, you have a vision and you have a tool and you have a map to take you to a place where I think you'll enjoy. And with that, I don't know if I took too much time, but
I certainly won't see that in my lifetime. It's phenomenal, but I certainly can't.
you know, that's the way. It's, you know, it's something. I mean, I was just out of college when we started the Farmington Heritage Trail. I mean, it takes a long time.
It's going to take a while.
But you know,
it's going to take $18 million plus too.
But you gotta have the vision, and you gotta have a plan.
I agree.
And this is what we were hired to do, and we hope we've done a good job for you.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Mr. Gold.
Yes, I did see this in March. I think you presented it, or April, to the town. And there was quite a bit of maybe negativity in terms of the neighbors on Housatonic.
Very much so.
Have you talked to them since? And what are they thinking? Or is there a compromise? Or is there a trail that you put behind?
There was a lot of comment about safety, the safety of Housatonic Avenue, concern about emergency services rushing up and down the street, and you know, we had made different representations to the community, Housatonic Avenue. We'd had a meeting with them, and we were going to put the trail on the street, and we have graphics that show that. But in working with all of you, it was decided to to present a plan that would take the trail ultimately off of Housatonic Avenue and bring it in back. There are 4 or 5 properties that have major impacts on their properties. And over time, the idea would be to work with those property owners to develop, a peaceful coexistence on that trail. And that's one of your hard nuts to crack. But it is important. And, I think really safety turned out to be the real operative key in terms of routing, in addition, obviously, to the aesthetics. But it's an important issue. And I believe those homeowners are here now, and they're going to want to speak to it. So, that's a discussion, continuing discussion.
I'm sorry, just one more question. So if I'm hearing you correctly, they're not on board?
Well, Housatonic Avenue neighbors, I don't know if they really were really satisfied with any particular route.
I mean, running it behind their homes?
Well, not the owners who would be affected. Yeah, so that's a hurdle. So that's a long-range hurdle to overcome.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But it's the plan, okay, right now. Now, the plan's a living document. Living documents change. Living documents have impacts. You have a roadmap now, which we think is the best one for us to present at this moment in time for you. Okay, but there will be a continuing dialogue on that.
Thank you.
So Mike, just so you know, the residents at Housatonic called my office, and I went down there and I walked those properties with them, and they were telling me the concerns of it being in the front and how that would impact them. So the thought was, put it in the back like it was originally proposed, have way more dialogue when this begins to move down with the neighbors. Obviously aesthetically, the trail would be much more pleasing to the eye. It would be hugging the riverfront itself, but it is continually conversation. The one thing the neighbors of Housatonic definitely told everyone was, not in my front yard. So that's kind of why the thought process was in tandem with the committee was putting it in the back. Yep.
So,
Mike?
just more from Mike's point, right now, if someone said, here's $5-7 million to go from Youngsfield to Tyne to Sagan Meadows, we still might not be able to do it because of the people that own some of that property. Right now, this time, not getting us permission. They're not getting us, so right now, even if we had the money, the trail's kind of stopped.
Can I ask a question, a different way?
Yeah.
So of this list in 5.4, how many of those people have given us permission? Because I saw, and thank you for the presentation, and thank you to the committee. Lisa Aronson brought this up in one of the first meetings, that easements were going to have to be a priority. It's a chicken and the egg thing, right? So how many of these have we gotten paid for?
As part of the planning study, we were not charged with assisting in the acquisition of easements. So that's a detailed, that's for the next phase, when you make a decision. So we have a sense of where people's opinions lie. So for instance, Eversource would be very happy to work with you and give you the rights, okay? Housatonic Avenue neighbors are right now not going to want to work with you on giving you rights. So this is where phasing comes in. So when we talk about trail design north to south, we're talking about a design sequence, but not a construction sequence. So you may find that in terms of funding, the state may be very excited about the bridge over the river at Hidden Treasure with connectivity to Kimberly-Clark. Those discussions will be taking place, and you'll be having very interesting discussions with the Bike and Trail Committee about how you want to phase this. We talked a lot about Meadenstill coming first because you're in discussions with Dr. Pye. That's wonderful because you have Sagan Meadows. The state likes connectivity. They like you to not necessarily build in all the segments. So they like that. So Meadenstill is really a nice tee-up because you have a fellow who we understand is willing to work with you. You have a small parking lot. You could bring it right up to the pinch point, and you have a mile of very nice trail that connects to Second Meadow. That makes all the sense in the world. But that's money. If you go to Brookfield and do the south end and do a soft trail and Sharrows, that's low-hanging fruit. And maybe you build momentum, because now you've got a beautiful trail for 2 miles that people want to continue and you want to build on. So you have lots of things to consider in the dynamics of your sequencing, and lots of things to consider. And there are rights of way to take over there through DOT, a private owner, Weontenaug, so those all have to be hammered out. So you have a process that's going to, you're just starting now. You have your study, you have the roadmap, you know what you're faced with. Now you got to roll up your sleeves and get to work and do the phase that you want to do.
I know railroad crossings is always how you said you gotta go to the state to get approval. How likely are they to give that approval, considering the dangers that come from, the other goal of our downtown is to create passenger service to the area, so now you're creating even more danger because you have a faster moving train that being caught. So is that something that's...
Right now, the railroad's very supportive of us.
Okay.
Very supportive. It's just been a very pleasant dialogue over this spring. And, I think it's more of a can-do than a what are you doing? So, but you got to build on it. Pick your section and start building on it. But yeah, so we think...
we've discussed this before. If you can get from the center of New Milford, connect to State Meadows, now you have a situation where people can park in town and escape to the north of us on their bikes, even without the trail past State Meadows. It's just nice biking up there.
That's
less
huge.
Traffic.
Yeah.
So, I guess what I would like is, all right, yeah, we have this whole plan for the whole thing. Let's pick a section, in my mind, preferably get people to park in our downtown and go north. Let's figure out how to get from downtown to Sayre Meadows and just concentrate on that. You have a plan. I don't know what the next steps need to be, but if it's having meetings with the property owners and trying to get everyone on board, I think we need to start really doing that. If we have a plan and approvals, then we can start doing some of the fundraising privately that, there's people that love this stuff and hopefully have some money that might want to donate, but we need to have that approval and plan.
Well, we do have a section in the report on next steps. And I think the first one we recommend is that the council formally adopt the plan so that you have, the political support behind it. And that will help you, not necessarily getting it built, but it'll help you with your funding opportunities, because that does make a difference for the federal funds to know that, you as a municipality have adopted the plan and you want to move forward with it. And then we wanted to make sure that you felt comfortable including it in the plan of conservation and development. So, I think we'll call it some housekeeping orders to take care of first before you start going into the next stage of construction of actually planning.
Katie?
Hi, thanks very much for your presentation, just as nice this time as it was before. Just in the interest of time, because we're almost coming up on 40-some minutes here, I have one question. Do you have now a number or percentage you could give us of all the areas that you've shown us where everything will go well, but you have a lot of areas that are unsure, such as Housatonic Avenue, Kimberly Clark, the golf course? What percentage of this whole plan that you would like us to adopt would you say is not easily, I don't know what the term is because you don't know, I don't think you've talked to everybody along the way, but what percentage would you say is going to be easy to get easements or access?
Oh, I would say
50%, 20%?
I would say for ease and getting it going, I would say
With a high probability
honestly,
of being able
I'd
to
say
use the
75 to 90%.
75 to 90%?
75 to 90%.
Okay, but isn't Housatonic Avenue a little bit more than?
It's a short section.
I see, and the
a short
Candlewood
section.
Valley having to go on the west side, you can't go through Harrybrook Park. That area, Housatonic is small, but when I look at the amount along the area of Harrybrook Park and Candlewood Valley Country Club, that's a lot of money to move away from the easier path.
Yeah.
And you consider that to be only
Yeah,
about
that's,
10%?
I think that's achievable through Harry Brook is certainly with the
I
discussion
didn't,
we've
no,
had.
I don't want to argue with you.
But
I'm just
now-
asking you, because you are the person that put this together. I'm not saying it, and there's, everything is achievable with certain circumstances. I'm just asking, you feel then 10, you said 25, maybe 10. Would you say somewhere in between? In order for the council to decide whether or not this is something we should really adopt, just as it is with a lot of question areas, I think I would like to have a better comfort level of what is achievable with some hard work, maybe some changes, building a bridge or whatever, because those are the expensive, more than expensive areas.
But I
So-
think I want to concentrate on having you feel comfortable that this is a long-range project. So everything.
I can't if I don't know that, I'll tell you, to be very honest with you, I love the idea of it. However, I have a hard time being really comfortable with something that has a really long area that we don't have a way to know when we're getting comfortable with it, that we can have the access to that property. So it's it's an unknown. I understand that comes with a lot of the work that you do in this type of thing. But it's hard, if you want us to have comfort, that's why I just asked if you had a percentage.
So, I mean, if I'm speaking a little bit off the cuff, but I would say.
That's fine.
I would say that it's a 9.5 mile trail. I would say probably maybe 2 to 2.5 miles is going to be a real, maybe 20% is going to be very difficult. A struggle.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, that's
Thank you.
my
That's good.
guesstimate.
No, that's good, thank you.
If I'm off, I apologize. I can go look
No,
at
you
it a
don't
little
have to
bit more.
apologize, that's just all I wanted, was just off the cuff, that's great.
Lisa?
And so, following on to that, and this might be a question for the committee, not for you, don't know which one. What's the next best alternative? So if you got 2 to 2.5, for the amount of time we've spent in design, I would expect to see a couple of options to say, if this doesn't work out, we got a plan. For the same reason that Katie stated, I love the concept, I'm excited about it.
Right.
And I think for tourism, just for quality of life of our residents, and to say, we're doing something for us, this is great. But if we have a plan, here's my analogy, I gotta go to new product development. If I had a new product development team come to me and said, we've got a great concept, there are these 5 patents that we're infringing upon. And we've got no plan for how to get around those patents, but it's a great concept. I would have a hard time adopting that particular design, so I'm looking for some
Sure. Well, the
options.
South Works good, because if you have trouble with Candlewood because they're planning, you simply stop the trail. You've got a 2.2 mile stretch up to the dog pound and what have you. You have a beautiful trail system. People can walk it. You have Harry Brook Park. You can bring people come and walk Harry Brook Park right now. Come to Harry Brook Park and stop. So you leave the gap, and people can turn around and go back. So you don't do it until you're ready, until everything is in place. There's nothing wrong with that, because that happens all the time. It's a phasing issue. So I think that's easy. I think Housatonic Avenue is more difficult, but only to a point, because you have Youngs Field Road and you have Helena Marks Park. Bring your path to Helena Marks Park, which is a very nice connectivity, okay? So you stop at Helena Marks, okay? And then you come through Wanapee Island, and you stop in Wanapee Island. That's about a mile, beautiful walk through the woods. And then, as time goes on, you work with Housatonic to bridge that gap. It's a short gap, it's 5 property owners, it's gonna take a lot of time, but it's not a big piece. Unfortunately, it's going to take a lot of time to do that. But you've got a very nice trail system. You have a very, very nice trail system. You just don't have that connectivity, that final link. Does that help?
Could I step in and
Almost.
answer your question?
Yeah, please.
Since you sort of opened to it.
I did.
As I said in my opening remarks, if you visit any other Greenway trail anywhere around, you'll find they still have gaps in their efforts. The most popular trail until Brookfield was open was the Harlem Valley Rail Trail in Millerton. Okay, many people don't realize that there's another section of that trail 2 miles north of Millerton that goes to Copiague Falls. They've been working probably 15 years, as long as I've lived here, to resolve that dispute. They haven't worked it out, but they didn't give up on the project just because, there's problems there. So, as Tom said, if we have a wonderful thing in Sega Meadows and River Road right now. If we extend that south, we have parking, that's an improvement. One of the things that's motivating all of us as economic development, bringing people downtown. Because when I used to take my son and his friends on the Harlem Valley Trail, and we'd get to Pharaoh's Pizza at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, and you had to wait for a table, because the downtown was filled with people. It's the same thing with Collinsville, it's the same thing with Simsbury. We want to bring people downtown, but we want to keep this trail moving forward. Yeah, there's some challenges here, but I hope you won't, throw the whole project out because some of the issues have not been resolved. Because if we build the Millerton section, if we connect with Brookfield. The other thing that I didn't get, because I didn't want to go with us till 8:15, but this is part of the Western New England Greenway, which I was a co-founder of, which is designed to connect with Brookfield, to connect with the Norwalk River Valley Trail, to connect with Housatonic Covered Bridge Trail, all the way to Canada. So, we are already attracting bike tourists, we're already attracting more people walking, and I hope that this plan, however long it takes, can keep us moving forward. So, thank you.
Any other questions? Oh,
Yeah, Tom, a couple questions. So, someone had noted, I think it was Julie, said that 172,000 people use the Brookfield Trail right now.
That
In a
was
year or something.
that was a study that the State Connecticut Greenways Council did.
So how many people do we estimate use our Riverwalk? How many people do we estimate use our Riverwalk?
We haven't done anything on it yet, so we don't know. But since you asked that, I was down there today, and I was delighted the Spaghetti Arms people were down there, and there were people in wheelchairs on the trail, and I was just so delighted to see people on wheelchairs, and they had dogs with them, and they were just going up and down the trail, and they looked like they were having a great time. So yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a small trail, it's a little part, but it's our riverfront's been totally revitalized by it. So I don't know how many people use it, but I do know, I see people fishing down there all the time when I go down there. I see people walking down there, and I know we've been encouraging this downtown walking loop to get people to visit the river and come downtown and also.
So it was noted that a quarter of the people who use the Brookfield Trail are from the Mill.
Yeah.
So
that's
that would
right.
be somewhere on the order of 1,000 people a week approximately. So
Yeah, you're better
do
at
you
math
know
than
why
me.
they're
Way better.
not using our Riverwalk and they're driving to Brookfield to use theirs? Is it because it's 2 miles versus that much?
Yeah, I mean, it's a 2 mile, it's a great walk. So that little quarter mile, it's pretty short right now for a walk.
Half
Tom,
mile,
I have a
half
question.
mile.
Sure.
Sorry, Paul, I just wanted, do you know how many people use the Sega Meadow Trail?
We'd have to ask, I don't know if anybody has ever done
Who would do
a
that?
study. It would have to be Park and Rec and,
Okay.
but I know just from that parking lot on the south end, I know you have all sorts of trouble with too many cars crammed into that parking lot. So I see people there all the time.
So when we approved giving this money, just so I can better understand the process, how many meetings did we have with the public before we started our design process of the trail itself?
How many meetings did we have with the public?
Yeah,
So-
to get their input on, like what are we looking, because I see we have a lot of trail that constitutes sharrows. So is that something that people in strollers or people that are walking feel safe being directly adjacent to the road as opposed to the Brookfield
No, anything with a
Trail,
sharrow would be
which is
for a bicycle.
isolated?
So just to make sure everybody is clear, these are multi-use trails. This is a multi-use trail that we have been trying to design. But we knew that it could not be entirely off-road. West Street, for example, that seemed to make sense, that we'd use sidewalks and sharrows. That's where sharrows make sense. Who knows how things evolve, but it's basically
So how
doing
many
the
meetings
best
did we
we
have before we started the design with Mullen and McBroom with the public?
Well, what we
get their
decided to
input
do-
on what they're looking for in the town of
We
Milford.
decided to have ask Malone and McBroom to come up with a plan and then present it to the public.
So we did not, before we started, do any surveys or ask the people, what are we looking for in a trail? Are we looking to?
Well, I don't know how to answer that. I mean, certainly we, as a nonprofit organization, have done surveys, have done a lot of stuff. But that's right, when the Bike and Trail Commission went through this, I think we we went with the plan first, and then we presented the plan for feedback, and then what you see here reflects feedback. Also, since you asked, I want to make sure you all realize in this progress report I sent to you, that there is a list of everybody who was a stakeholder was contacted. I want to make sure that's very clear. Every single person that owns property or that was contacted either by a member of the committee or by the town planner. Kathy can probably verify that if you have questions as to. So nobody is surprised by this, all right? Most people.
So just to confirm then what you said, so we had a concept of where the trail was going. Before we did the actual plans, we met with the property owners, or did we do that after we did the
Afterwards,
plans?
right.
What was the thought process in asking them after as opposed to before?
Well, you have to have, at least in our thinking, we're all volunteers here, just so you know.
But you do have.
I'm answering you,
Kathy
I'm
and
trying to
Dan.
answer you, yes. And so our thinking was, we were following the long plan of a Riverside Greenway. We showed Malone and McBroom what we had to work with. They did a flyover. We asked them to come up with a plan so that we could have something to show people. Rather than, I mean, I think what you're saying is kind of start open-ended and say, what do you think? What we thought is we should have professionals look at the opportunities. Malone and McBroom, I don't know if we mentioned it, but they have done a large portion of the Farmington Trail, so they have a lot of experience with this. So essentially, we were asking for their expertise to come up with a plan, and then we presented. That was our thinking. You know, you might have done it differently. So.
And did we consider Grove Street or the west side of the river?
We sure did.
Do we have
Yes.
any?
Um,
Would we have the same property issues or not as many?
Absolutely. Well, and if Tom wants to jump up, he can. We've been looking at. We looked at Grove Street. The terrain was not conducive. The narrowness over there, the washout area that you get in Grove Street, all of the properties, everything else. We absolutely looked at Grove Street because that would have eliminated the bridge. But we did not, and we looked hard at Grove Street. We looked at the other side of the river, because another option could have been to use Veterans Bridge and the side path there. But you get on the other side, you get behind the cookhouse, and you get where the estuary, whatever you call it, comes in, and there's no way to get past it without massive engineering. So we've looked at both sides of the river. This is what our experts came up with.
I didn't see that in the minutes.
Hmm?
That wasn't in the minutes. I didn't see the discussion of that.
I'm sure.
No, I read all of them. So that's my. So do we have like cost considerations? Because you have that crossing of the Bleachery Dam, right? And we don't have permission for Mr. Colbeck to use his property. So what would be the alternative cost on Grove Street, say? Because you do have a shoulder from past GMS Rowing south.
I know that shoulder very well.
On the east
I
side.
know that shoulder very
The
well.
grass, I'm talking to the
I've
grass
ridden
shoulder.
that, I've bicycled that shoulder. Well, maybe.
North of GMS Rowing.
Hmm?
North of GMS Rowing.
South of Jim's is 3 feet.
On the road, I'm talking about the grass area.
The what?
The grass area.
What
Where
grass area?
Tremonts are and the other several property owners. You know the road that was reconstructed there?
On Grove?
Yes,
No.
east side.
No. So you're talking about right on the river?
No, I'm talking on the east side
On
of the
the
road.
east side of the road.
The east side of the road.
The other side,
Grass
but you-
shoulder.
not where you ride, the other side.
A wide grass shoulder.
All right, so you have to cross the road, and you've got up around, I mean, we're gonna get into the weeds here if you guys really want to, but.
No, I'd just like to see, like,
Mhm.
did we have a decision matrix that said, this is why Grove Street wasn't considered, this is why the west side of the road?
Offhand, I can't recall.
Okay. And then, how do we connect to Brookfield? Because when I looked at all the mapping, it's just straight up wetlands from on the Brookfield line south,
Yeah, I mean,
which was one of the main charges when you presented to us asking for the money from the landfill settlement fund.
right.
Was you ensured to us that we were going to have connectivity to Brookfield as part of this, and I see it ending with no potential future connectivity. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a huge wetland system south of that.
Yeah, what we came up with, and yeah, I agree with you. I was hoping, yeah, we could have a multi-use trail all the way down. And we you may see, well, we did examine alternatives for that. And this is the best we could come up with. A Sharrow on Aldrich Road, Aldrich Oaks, and hopefully, we didn't get into it, but hopefully with some traffic calming measures and a walking path that gets you through this. So that's what we've come up with. And again, sure, that'd be great.
So one of the things that we thought was going to be very important for that town line connection is your dialogue with Brookfield, because we don't know exactly where their trail is going. It's not planned up to the town line yet, but we know they're heavily committed to the trail. So we're going through a Weontonoc Land Trust property at that town line point, and we are providing a small parking area at the southern terminus of our New Milford Trail. So you can put your trail in right now and work with Brookfield on the connectivity, but that's a community dialogue to tie that up. So, you know, they don't have their connection plan, so, you know, we didn't have one to tie into, but they have a commitment to bring it up through Milford, and they have a trail system that's already in place that they're building on. So that's going to be continuing dialogue, but that should be resolvable. If I can just briefly talk about Grove Street, we did study Grove Street, and the terrain on the driveways and the homes. There are selected properties, which and the speed of traffic on Grove pointed us towards the river crossing. It became pretty clear to us quite quickly that Grove Street was going to be very difficult technically. The terrain is quite challenging with the driveways and some homes right up on the road, both sides. So we went over the river. I would say it was really more a combination of technical and safety that made that determination.
So you believe that having the sidewalk with Sharrows on Pickett District, which is our sole industrial area in New Milford, with a lot of tractor trailer
Well,
traffic
that would
is
be a
preferable?
10-foot wide path separated with a rail system and, you know, a landscape strip, and we think that would work. That's a similar, different condition than Grove Street.
So can I just piggyback on Paul? So understand, you did the design, didn't go for market research first. So now that we've had a preliminary design for a while, have you done some market outreach to answer that question? I mean, we can all have our opinions, but ultimately it's the people who are going to use the system to say, feel safe, don't feel safe. Have we had a chance to do that? Have we not done that?
No market research by me.
Not by our group of 5 volunteers.
I've ridden on Grove Street, and I can see the wisdom of moving it over to Pickett District. I rode it once, and once was more than enough.
Oh, yeah.
It was not safe. It was wicked. Thank you.
So if you were going to pick sections, so we went back to picking sections, and there's a trade-off, right, between the one that's most economically attractive, which is, you know, taking downtown and going north. What are the top 3 easiest pieces with the biggest bang for user buck, in your opinion, right now to go after? Easiest, most cost effective.
I guess I got to go to the chart and see what the monies are, but I would say your most inexpensive is the 2-mile soft trail section in Sharrows to the south end of the town.
Which phase is that?
That's 11A. So that's the low-hanging fruit.
But that strands people, they can't get to Brookfield and they can't get up here.
They have a beautiful walk along the Still River.
So we have 2 beautiful 2-mile walks.
Okay, so that's one.
Miles.
Give me 2 more.
I love the downtown connection to Youngs Field. You have a trail there in place. I'd love to bring people up into the town, bring them down, and connect over to Helen Marks Park. I think that's a wonderful opportunity.
And if all we ever did was that, it would be a huge economic boost to downtown.
And I really like the Medenstill piece. If you have the proper negotiations through, that's more expensive, but it carries Saginaw Meadows right through along the river, and it's just spectacular, really. I mean, it's really nice.
I believe you. I'm just saying, the easiest, I'm not sure that would be on the easiest list, but thanks for that.
I would say technically it's quite, you know, not a lot of hurdles technically.
No, but the easement's there, so that makes something good.
Yeah, the men still
Dollar per mile, you know?
cooperative.
Huh?
All right, thank you.
What'd you say?
I think men's still open in conversation, aren't they, as far as the community?
Yeah.
Dunno. How would we know?
We're talking with them.
Right.
And I would really like to push for the West Street sidewalks and the connectivity to the Hidden Treasure Park, because I think Hidden Treasure is really cool. That's a momentum builder. I think the sidewalks need to get fixed on West Street. You know, you capture a lot of capital with not a great deal of expenditure in West Street. And that area really does need that capital improvement. And you combine it with the river trail and get your folks to Hidden Treasure Park, you take advantage of the history along there, you've got your connection to the downtown. That's a wonderful section to do.
It is.
Cole?
No. I think there's going to be significant difficulties with Mendenstill based on recent developments.
So,
Based on what?
Development.
So, I'd like to make a suggestion, Mayor, that, you know, there's a lot of conversation, a lot of speculation, a lot of opinions, and a lot of thoughts and questions. Perhaps the council could maybe have the bike trail and Tom and your committee back to maybe just spend time on a less crowded agenda evening to go through some of these questions?
That, just so you know, that is contingent on whether we exist after tonight.
Right, and can I ask him a question? Yeah, somebody else. You mentioned, and I fully appreciate being a volunteer, being one myself, you have only 5. Was there any reason that you didn't expand your first committee? Or you just said you were only 5 volunteers. Was there any reason that you didn't ask to have more volunteers on your committee? I mean, were you kept, I guess I'm saying, were you kept to that?
I just say we wanted 9.
Right.
Mayor Brownback did it 5.
That's what I was getting at. It was. I knew there was a reason, I just didn't remember.
We actually wanted more than that.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks, Tom.
No.
That was it.
Thank you.
My question.
that might answer your question, because it was, I think, a question to me concerning the Mendenstill piece. I am meeting with Dr. Pai and his financial advisor, with myself, Greg Ossipoff. Is there some issues related to Mendenstill besides this piece that we need to work on?
Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Number 7. Are we going from the presentation to number 7?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion to create a temporary committee called the Bike and Trail Committee 2. This temporary committee will consist of 5 members with a term of 6 months. The scope of the Bike and Trail Committee 2 is to be determined. We can see below on the agenda what the charge was of the former Bike and Trail Committee, perhaps called Trail Committee 1. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. Esposito.
Yeah, I would like to amend this motion and expand this committee out to 9, which I was in favor of 2 years ago. Listen, Tom, you know I've supported this since the day I met you, and since the day I came into this room. I've had some criticisms of it, but it needs to be expanded to 9 people. And I heard from some people when this agenda got posted that were interested in joining this committee. So I'd like to amend this, or if you could amend your motion to add this to turn it to 9 people for 6 months, I could support that. And at that point, I would like to ask to table number 8 until more people can be interviewed and we can come up with the full 9.
I guess I was going to say the same thing. And from what Lisa's comment was, it sounds like they would like to have the extra 4 people also.
And-
I don't speak out of tune for you, because that's.
Listen, just like,
Well, can I just say a couple of things on that? Hold on, is that an actual
Is that
amendment?
allowed?
Right, we're still, just a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'd like to,
I'd like to amend this.
are you making,
I would like to make a friendly amendment to
I don't
this.
think it'd be friendly.
There's no such thing as a friendly, I'd like to, I would
no
like
friends.
to, no friends here, okay. I would like to see if you would consider rewording your motion
Yes.
to include 9 members from 5 members.
Yes, I would. So
How would we do
Withdraw
that?
your
I'm going to withdraw my original motion.
Before we go into discussion.
Just a second, Mike.
Walter, can you withdraw your second?
I have to withdraw my second, yes, I withdraw the second.
Okay.
Before we make the motion and go into discussion with the council, should we hear from anyone on the committee to see what their thoughts are on the?
We'd have to go and make the motion to go into discussion, and in discussion, we can invite someone in.
Can I make a motion to go into discussion?
We have to.
We gotta make the motion first.
We have
Okay.
to undo
And
it.
then-
We've now removed the motion,
Correct.
original motion and the second. I will now move for discussion and possible action on the creation of a temporary committee called Bike and Trail 2. Its temporary committee consists of 9 members with a term of 6 months. The scope of the Bike and Trail 2 is to be determined, and below on our agenda, you will see, let the record have a copy, the charge of the former Bike and Trail Committee. Do I have a second?
Second,
Now, any discussion? Mr. Gold?
Yes, so Tom, why do you want to expand to 4 people? Just
Well-
because a couple of people walked up to you and say, hey, I want to be on the
No,
committee?
we built a $4 million sports field
Yeah.
with a committee of how many, Mr. Mayor? 14?
Which
The sport,
committee?
the,
Two committees.
the building committee.
You don't have the turf and track committee?
We're looking at
It was about
we're
12.
looking at a,
12.
It was about 12.
how many miles is this trail? 9? Looking at 9 miles, over $18 million. It'll take the next 20 years. I think we need more than 5 people from our community. Especially, I would like to make sure that whoever does come on this group of 9, at least 2 of them have heavy construction experience, just like I requested when we built the football fields. We have wonderful volunteers. I don't see anybody with any heavy construction experience. I know Tom. I know Tom has it. I know he writes for JCL. But we need people that do heavy excavating. We need folks that
Tom, I got it.
ride
Yes.
bulldozers,
I
right?
have
People that build bridges. It would be
Tom.
nice to have that
Michael?
as part of it.
A member of the committee, I know we're not having a dialogue with them, but a member of the original Bike and Trail Committee, I asked her, and she stated, I quote, "They intended to have 9, and prior mayor changed it, brought it down to only 5." And it is a large, this is me now, it is a large charge for 5 people,
So
volunteers.
are you thinking of keeping the same 5 on there and adding to the?
Well, I think we need to interview everybody else that now that we haven't expanded this committee out to 9 and make sure that we have every option and we make it the ability for other people to get involved. Not that I have any problem with the group that's on here, but I think if we're going to make this decision and accept this report and move forward and spend the next 20 years building this, which I am 100% in favor of, we need to have a lot of minds on this and a lot of dialogue and a lot of input.
So the motion on the table is for 9.
Lisa.
I'm sorry, Lisa.
That's okay.
I didn't see your
And
hand.
I've got 2 people who expressed interest who I would call super users.
Right.
Avid runner as well as an equestrian, because that subject has been broached, that maybe there's some equestrian possibilities for usage. And, I'm with you that if this is so important, and I think it is, and I stated earlier, I'm in full support of this. Let's get the manpower.
They said to us multiple times, we're only 5.
Yeah,
I've heard that very
Yeah.
clear multiple times. It's only 5, you need more help.
yeah.
And I think that what we're all looking for is success here,
Yeah,
right?
I'd like to
I mean,
hear-
we all want this to be built.
Mike?
I'd like to hear from the committee, their comment on this.
Yeah, I was actually prepared to
Middle of them.
make an argument in favor of the committee, but I just want to point out on the progress report that we provided, the second page, includes a list of the efforts we've been involved with in addition to this trail. We took our charge as evaluating and promoting various opportunities to promote walking and biking, and the list is here. The complete streets plan, Route 7 safety audit. We applied for New Milford River Trail to become a state designated greenway, and that was approved. So you can read, I won't waste your time, but you can read all the other things. So hopefully, if you decide to reconstitute this committee, you will keep that broad perspective in perspective.
And just another little add-on, I had a conversation with Seamus about a week ago, and part of it, of what also Seamus has been working on, is helping to map all the other walking trails we have.
And he has one right there.
So, as, you know, for 5 people to take on a 9-mile trail over 20 years at $18 million, I think you need a little bit of help, and I know there's other people who'd like to participate.
Can I just add one more thing? I'm not sure why it has to be a temporary committee. I mean, that leaves us with 6 months and a 1-year maximum. And this is a long-term vision. And I'm fine with broadening the scope to horse trails if it becomes horse trails or kayaking or whatever that may be. But I don't understand the logic behind 6 months, especially if you want metrics. Why would you do metrics as a 6-month? You want to look at over year, and you can't. We don't exist a year from now. So.
Okay. Motion on the floor, though, is about 9.
Yeah, to Lisa's point, we have a ton of committees. We have another committee that we're putting forward tonight for equine. Can we maybe say this bike and trail committee becomes some other things as well, like passive recreation, like Lisa just suggested, kayaking or equine? Because we have all these committees, and I have a real concern. We have the Riverfront Revitalization Committee, and a lot of these overlap, and I think we need to have a bigger discussion as it relates to how is there cooperation between all of these different committees? Because right now I know they're trying their best, but I don't think there's a formal structure in place. And I really think before we act on this, we should have this figured out as a council. These people are all volunteers. It's not fair to them. If we have this equine committee, that's going in one direction. We have a bike trail committee, maybe going in another direction. We have this riverfront revitalization that may be going in a third direction. Are they having meetings together quarterly, for instance? Could we sit down, maybe a couple people with each of these potential committees and organize this so we minimize the number of committees, but maximize the efficiency?
So we'll bring it back to the council
Yeah.
with kind of the overarching, who is the overarching one. Come out with a dichotomy so that the public can see it, where they go, and which group is responsible for what.
Yeah, so we're maximizing their time. I mean, I value their time.
I do too. And Mayor, I just want to say, my understanding, and maybe we should go back on our own minutes, is that the riverfront revitalization was the overarching body, and that all the Hidden Treasure and Old Boardman Bridge and others did meet, some of them, with the revitalization group, and that they would be the coordinating body. So perhaps we should just look into how that might be refined a little bit too, because it is a lot of committees, and we do need them to all be in sync if anything like this is to ever come apart. So shall we table this?
Just one thing to add to, when we talked about as the scope of this project's getting bigger and bigger, and going back to the football thing, what we did is in the first committee, we understood, and we brought forward a scope of the project, and then when we formed the second committee, we made sure we had a town council member on board, we had a BOE member on board, and the same thing with this committee now. There's only 5 of them. A lot of the times you can't get 5 together, and as the scope of this project, maybe they can get some more people maybe from the town council involved with it, and other commissions that you discussed can join this commission so they can all interlock and talk to each other. And I'm in favor of making it bigger. The 5
Maybe having a
people-
Parks and Rec member,
Absolutely.
since they're going to have to maintain it.
Absolutely.
Should it be more than
Yeah,
9?
It's a large project.
Should it be more than 9 now?
Well, Lisa's on
Well,
that.
can we
Got a
now-
motion.
Yes, we do. We have a motion that we're discussing, calling for expansion of Bike and River Trail 2 to 9 members.
Any other discussion?
Second?
We have a second.
We have a second.
Sorry.
Walter's already seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I abstained, because I don't think I'm in favor.
And then we're going to bring back at the next council meeting, we'll bring back kind of the organizational chart where it goes.
Right.
And there are other, so is it your purview that we do them all at once?
I'd like to.
Yeah.
I'd like to have the other people interviewed at least, just to make sure that we've got, everybody has been counted at the table
Right.
before we
Is
bring
that
them
when we're
forward.
gonna talk about being permanent
Well,
versus temporary?
Yeah,
This
I was
is-
just gonna mention
Permanent
that.
and temporary
I-
are two different, that's not, it's more of an ordinance, correct?
Mayor, I'd like to suggest that if we're going
Making this a permanent
to
committee.
if we're going to interview to find people to fill this out to 9, I think it is then very appropriate in my view, and Lisa brings up a very good point. We have a lot of committees that expire, and it just takes a lot of time for everybody to, the council should discuss making it a permanent committee. Actually, I'd like to have a special meeting when all we did was talk to the trail and the bike and the equine and anybody else who wants to
Can we
get
ask the town
involved.
attorney, in order for this to be more of a permanent committee, what do we have to do?
You need to go through the ordinance process. The ordinance needs to be proposed, you need to go to a public hearing, and then it needs to be enacted into
Right.
ordinances to create a permanent committee. So we can't just write a resolution to the council.
But we need to start the discussion, so I think it's time to start the discussion.
Yeah, I
It'll
do
probably
too.
take us till their 6 months are up to come to a
At the
decision
end
on
of the
that.
6 months, we should make it permanent.
Well, just so that I understand then, we don't exist,
No, we
correct?
We're about to vote on your existence right now. We're about to vote on your existence right now, but I'm in favor, you know.
I think you voted on.
We voted on your existence, it's just how
We
many.
voted on the new committee
Right.
too,
have 9 people.
and when we meet in 2 weeks, hopefully, we will have other people to add to make you 9.
Right.
So
it'll
for
be a
2 weeks,
temporary
can you
committee For now.
just
and then
stay in limbo?
perhaps permanent one.
Right.
So,
You have 9 people in 6
That good?
months.
Tom, what, you were making a motion, is it to bring all 9 out?
Yes.
Right, I think we should
All
just
9
table, I think we
names
should
for-
table
I
number
didn't-
8 until we've interviewed everybody else and bring all 9 names at the next meeting
Right.
so that this committee
Are you making a
can get
motion?
going.
Well, you've got to say it. Are you making?
I'd like to make a motion to table,
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to table number 8 until we've interviewed everybody else that is interested in being on this committee.
Second.
Second, discussion, so,
Mike?
that's her second. I give it to her. The point of, you said with the turf and track, I don't forget that you guys did a track, and thank you.
Don't think,
Appreciate
thank the
that.
town people.
Everyone's on the turf committee now, it's like, no, there's track too. We should get a council person on this committee, if anyone here is thinking about it.
Well, I guess we'll see if somebody
No.
volunteers to be
No, it's
interviewed for it. I mean, there's a bunch of them right here. So we have a motion, we have a second?
Second was Lisa.
Yes, I got that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to take a 5-minute recess right now?
You want to take a recess?
Do you want to take a recess now or after charter?
Let's finish this, it's already going.
Okay, let's wait until after charter review.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, James.
What'd you mean for that?
Thank you.
Yes, it's been in the background the whole time. There's a, you don't hear the TV playing? The phone was ringing? It's in the room behind us. No, we're not. No, we're still in session. The mayor just, we're still in session here. We didn't take a recess. The mayor just went to find out why there's a television or a radio playing in the background behind us. So don't leave.
We get charter revision next.
Charter Revision Commission.
Tom.
It's gonna be an hour and 44 minutes too.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, hi, Mike. Thank you, Paul. Find it? Thank you.
Well, a couple extra copies if anyone wants them.
It's under budget. Killed it.
Good, sir. Yeah, sure. Good evening, for the record, Paul Szymanski, Charter Revision Commission Chairman. So we have been meeting for the last several months. We had a talented group of 12 people that whittled down to 10 due to time commitments. Current members on the commission are Joe DiGregorio, member of the Board of Finance, Pete Helmus, former Planning Commission member. We have Leva Furman, who's here with us tonight, former mayor and former Charter Commission member from 2006. We have Diane Clave, who's here tonight. She brings an interesting perspective. She used to be on the equivalent of the council down in New Jersey, so she brings a totally different perspective to the equation. We have Michelle Gentile, a local business owner, Lisa Agee, a small business owner, Tom Mulvihill, a former administrator from the school system, Gerard Bianchi, who is an engineer, and Ken Taylor, who is the former Charter Commission chair, as well as a local attorney, moderator, you name it, he does it. As of tonight, we filed the draft report with the town clerk. It has not been officially submitted to you. Tonight, we're giving you an overview of where we are today, so you can understand where we are. We lost a little bit of time with the weather in May, but we're still on track to get it on the ballot for the November election. So the idea is to get this in as front of many people as possible so that they can vote on the proposed amendments. We're going to have our second public hearing next Wednesday, July 20th, which is at the June 20th, just testing you, make sure you're still awake. June 20th at the John Pettibone Community Center. Then after that public hearing, we're going to meet to finalize our recommendation and submit the draft to the council. You guys are going to then hold your public hearing somewhere around the end of the month or beginning of next month. And then after that, you're going to give your feedback back to us so we can come up with a final draft. And once we do that, we'll submit that to you, and you have the ultimate authority. You can change it in any way that you desire before it goes on the ballot. So that's the process. And our current recommendations, which I'll go through pretty quickly, is first we looked at all the recommendations that you guys gave us the specific charge, and there were some additional things that we looked at. So the charter was last revised about 12 years ago in 2006. Again, Ken and Leva were on the committee at that time. As you know, the town charter requires us to look at this every 5 years, so we're definitely in default on that. You guys had asked us to look at 6 specific items. And as part of making the recommendations, the commission itself did several things. We conducted research. We used Attorney Grimes' office to provide us background information, statutory information, see what other towns did, basically gather data for use. We had a set of guiding principles, which I'll go over in the next slide. And we want to make sure that everything's in the best interest of New Milford. We all have a different experience with town government, and we all want to make it the best that it can be. And as part of our guiding principles, there were 3 basic tenets. 1, will the change benefit New Milford? 2, is there a compelling reason to change it as it exists? And 3, what are the potential long-term consequences of the change? It's always easy to make a change. It's always hard to think about how it may be utilized in the future. So the first charge that you guys gave to us was to consider combining the Planning Commission and the Zoning Commission into a single commission. So Attorney Taylor had sort of taken the charge on that, and ultimately the recommendation was not to combine the commissions at this time, with the caveat that we reserve the right to amend the recommendation upon submission of the draft report to the town council. And Ken will be happy to answer any questions if you have them at the end of the presentation. So out of 169 municipalities right now, 139 of them have combined commissions and only 30 have separate commissions. Different towns have different reasons for combining their commissions, which we learned. We learned that combining them would not change much of the day-to-day staff activity in the land use office as it currently exists. We also learned that New Milford subdivision applications have dramatically decreased in the last 20 years. You guys saw it as part of your council presentation by Mrs. Castaneda when she noted there were basically 1 or 2 applications per year the last few years. We would like the town council to provide some clarification of the reason for having us look at that issue and give us some feedback on this initial research. So you see how many towns have it versus not have it. It doesn't really impact day-to-day operations, and the application numbers significantly decrease. So we want some direction as to what additional information we should obtain and what your guys' thoughts was on why you asked for that. We had some background as part of the decision-making process. One, the current planning and zoning commissions reflected opposition to combining the commissions. Some people were significantly stronger in their sentiment on the commissions than others. We did not see a compelling reason for change at this time. We didn't know that it would necessarily impact development. However, we did learn that certain things, such as zone changes and some other items, could be expedited in a manner. Subdivisions, though, would not, because they'd still have the same process. And all regulations must be followed, whether they're planning or zoning. The next charge that you gave us was to examine the restoration of Board of Finance responsibility of post-referendum budget adjustment. And our ultimate conclusion was we agree with certain exceptions. So we're looking at returning to the system in place prior to the 06 charter revision. But the exceptions includes new check and balance to prevent the Board of Finance from overriding town council strategies for town improvement. So the current system right now is the Board of Finance proposes the initial town budget after it goes through the mayor's recommended budget to the council and then to the Board of Finance. If the budget is defeated, the Board of Finance has no role in the budgetary process afterwards. It's only the town council. Prior to 2006, if the budget was defeated, it went to the Board of Finance and not the town council. So the rationale of the commission was that the town council and the Board of Finance are 2 distinct offices with 2 distinct responsibilities. The town council, they're an extension of the legislative authority, and the Board of Finance is the fiduciary body of the town. We believe that the skills and talents suitable for one office are not necessarily suitable for the other office. Typically, Board of Finance members have more of a financial background, whereas council's more of a policy-making background. Compared to many other municipalities, New Milford operates outside the norm. So what the revision is, was to eliminate the section that states that basically the Board of Finance would have no further role after the budget is initially approved, to instead state that in the event that the majority of those voting in the budget referendum reject the proposed town operating budget, the Board of Education budget, or both, the Board of Finance shall revise the rejected portion or portions of the budget and submit proposed revisions thereof to a subsequent referendum consistent with Section 805E. So that's the budget referendum making process. Within 2 days of business days of a special Board of Finance meeting, a majority of the town council may petition the mayor to call a special town council meeting to override Board of Finance revisions. At the special meeting, a 2/3 vote of the entire town council, whether present or not, so that would be 6 members, may overrule the Board of Finance revisions to the rejected budget or budgets and approve alternative revisions to be voted on by the ensuing referendum. So do you guys understand that? So basically, if the budget fails, it goes to the Board of Finance. If 5 members of the council petition to have a special meeting, it could only get overturned by 6 of the 9 members of the council. The next charge was to consider making all terms for appointed boards and commissions 4 years. So what we did was we created a new section 704, which reflects and clarifies the composition of existing boards, commissions, and authorities, and ensured that none exceeded 4 years. Right now, there's a real just mixture of smorgasbord of everything. So we're trying to provide some consistency. It was pretty simple revision in that case. The next charge was to consider whether the charter should contain the code of ethics. We recommend that the code of ethics remains in the code of ordinances because any modifications to it can be made much more easily than by charter. Further, we believe that it should contain reference to the code of ethics in the charter itself, which currently it does not. And the code of ethics is enumerated in chapter 6B of the code of ordinances today. So we're proposing a charter revision to incorporate a new section which basically states that, and that the code of ethics shall be reviewed at the commencement of a charter revision commission, which, as we discussed earlier, is every 5 years. So basically, we're now saying the code of ethics shall be reviewed every 5 years, as opposed to right now where it's kind of silent on the subject. Town clerk and tax collector, you asked us to consider whether the town clerk and tax collector should be appointed or elected positions. Our recommendation is to maintain the current practice of electing these positions as reflected in the current charter. Bless you. Our rationale was the following. 1, there is no compelling reason to change. 2, the positions operate independently of an elected mayor and council. 3, the positions operate in harmony with town government, regardless of the political landscape at the moment in time. 4, there is no measurable increase in efficiency by changing the positions to be appointed. And last, it could create a risk of limiting the candidate pool. The next charge, Ms. Clave was involved with this one, was considering the elimination of the office of mayor and the hiring of a town manager who would be chosen by the town council. Our recommendation was that New Milford should maintain the current practice of electing a mayor every 2 years, and that there is not a need to hire a town manager at this time. The rationale was that hiring a town manager removes decision-making power for the town's chief administrator away from the voters and places it with the council. 2, there's no compelling reason to change. 3, voter turnout and public participation could decrease. That's something that we saw in the research that Attorney Grimes had performed. 4, in the last 15 years, all 7 attempts by Connecticut towns to implement the town manager form of government failed. So every single time it was tried, it failed. During that time, 2 towns actually eliminated the town manager form and went back to electing a mayor. There were other issues raised by the public as part of the public hearings that we held and public comment that we allow at every meeting, as well as the Charter Revision Commission itself. Some of those things were the wording of the budget advisory questions, the number of members on the Board of Finance, the partial passage at a budget referendum, the scope of the Director of Finance's authority to invest funds, to conform the Charter's town meeting chapter to the statutory scheme, and last was a new section regarding the chief of police. So the first was to clarify.
On the next page.
On the next page.
More.
Got the next page?
Yeah, there's more things. No,
Go back. Yeah.
More things considered.
One more. So there was 3 other items. Next page. No, slide 22. Yeah, so the other items that we considered as well was clarification of elected officials' vacancy terms. That happened within the last year, which we'll talk about. Leba was really good on clarification of general powers and procedures records, compensation for all elected appointed officials, and Leba was our manager of all grammar and wording. That was one of our most exciting meetings, I must say. And then also town meeting appropriation threshold adjustments. And we also made language changes to correct statutory references for clarification and for consistency. So the intent is we saw a lot of things in this document where we could change some minor wording and eliminate a ton of arguing between people. So the first item that we looked at was if the budget is defeated, do you wish to see the amount appropriated for general town government or education increased? Right now, it's yes or no. We feel that doesn't give enough guidance, so we're proposing new language which says, is this amount proposed too high, too low, or adequate? This way it's crystal clear. There's no guessing. So we hope you're in favor of that. And right now there's an argument taking place of what does increased mean? So we think this will clarify. Slide 25. Interestingly, Board of Finance is the only elected board with an even number of members and an even number of alternates. And today, if there's a tie, the mayor breaks the tie, which is quite curious.
Very curious.
So what we are proposing is the Board of Finance to have 7 elected members and 3 appointed alternates. So that makes it crystal clear, removes, it's not saying there'll never be a tie, but we certainly want to decrease the potential for a tie. Because we feel that board should be able to make its own decision with, no offense, without the mayor's decision-making in it. Next was partial passage at the budget referendum. So the question is, if one budget passes and the other budget is defeated, should the approved budget be reconsidered at a subsequent referendum? So we are recommending that if one budget passes, it should be adopted and not subject to further revision or referendum. So it would change from the current practice where if one fails, both fails. We believe this reflects the will of the voters. Interestingly, in our research in Newtown, Bethel, and Richfield, any part of the budget that passes is final, but in Brookfield and New Fairfield, they're the same as us, where if one fails, both fails. Next was, should the Director of Finance have sole authority over the investment of town funds? The committee felt strongly that no, in the matter of investments, Director of Finance actions should be subject to approval by the Board of Finance. Our rationale was that the unilateral decision-making over special funds and investments has raised concerns over time. We've seen certain times where certain decision-making processes has led to negative returns, which is not in the best interest of the taxpayer. We currently do not have an elected treasurer, which many other towns do have. So there's no second set of eyes as the agent of deposit in our accounting. So we have a new section which says the Board of Finance is to advise the Director of Finance and approve or reject the investment of any town funds exceeding 1/8 of 1 mil in marketable securities, private placements, and timed dispositions of greater than 364 days.
Time deposits, I think it's
Huh?
It's not depositions.
That's, okay.
Yeah.
That was a cut and paste.
That was math.
It was probably attorney's next.
That was a cut and paste, Attorney Franks.
Next was the,
And 1/8 of the mill.
as chairman, I will take the blame. That's how it
If you're
works.
just curious, 1/8 of the mill is about $350,000.
Good math, Leo. I did it myself as well. Great job. Proposed revision was a new chapter 9 regarding the town meeting. This is to make this section consistent with Connecticut general statutes. There's a bunch of inconsistencies, so this was internal housekeeping items that we did. We're also proposing to clean up the police department. They had their own section, which was unique to the police. So Liba did a lot of work on this. We're proposing to delete that chapter, add the chief of police to administrative officers, where all the other administrative officers are, to make it consistent, and to move the section which was in chapter 9 to a new section titled chief of police. So that's more internal housekeeping. Next was a item that we felt very strongly about and this was interesting, some people who weren't necessarily involved in town government, who were on the commission, who saw what happened, where there was a bunch of unnecessary arguing because of ambiguity in the word. And it's not ambiguous to some, it's ambiguous to others. So it was a good learning experience to hear from laymen who aren't involved, who said, listen, we need to make this wording so anyone who reads this document can fully understand what's proposed by this language. And Gerard Bianchi was one of the ones who was the leading charge on that. And so the question is, when shall the term of a person who has been appointed to fill an elected position vacancy expire? So we are recommending to clarify that, that any vacancy from whatever cause arising in any elective town office for which more than half the full term has elapsed, because the statutes dictate that the other half, except in the case of the mayor as provided for in section 603 of this charter, shall be filled within 60 days of such vacancy by appointment by the town council. And what we added was for the unexpired portion of the term. So it's crystal clear.
Right.
No question, no arguing, done. It's about 4 hours of everyone's life we could have done. The next recommendation was to clarify the general powers and procedures, records, policy, and compensation for elected and appointed town boards and commissions. So for that, we created a new section 301 for elected officials, a new section 701 for appointed officials, and then we revised section 403, which was for the clerk of the town council.
That's Katie Francis's best practices that we're talking about.
Yeah. Next was to change the supplemental appropriation amount for which a town meeting must be called. So we revised section 903B. So currently, it states any appropriation supplemental to the total annual budget which is in excess of 1/5 mil, and we change it to 1/8 mil, so it's a lower threshold, or any supplemental appropriation if the cumulative total of supplemental appropriations for the current fiscal year shall already exceed, it currently says 1 mil, we're proposing to change it to 1/2 of 1 mil of the last completed grant list. So the idea is to have a greater level of control where the council and Board of Finance aren't making large supplemental appropriations without having a town meeting where there's a public hearing process and the involvement of the public at large. The next recommendation was with respect to the budget and the timing of the budget. We revised section 502E, which states that all department budgets, including the Board of Education budget, shall be submitted to the mayor and the director of finance by the first business day in February. Currently, the department heads are somewhere around that time. The Board of Ed is the third Tuesday in February. So the idea is to give a little bit more time for the decision-making process. We also are clarifying appointed boards, which is the next slide. There's every single time there's turnover, there's always a question as to reappointments or appointments of new members. That's no longer going to be up for discussion or debate. So from now on, all terms would begin on February 1st. So it's a full 3 months after the election. Huh? But after the election is the first Tuesday, right? Second Tuesday in November. New section 703C. No appointments to terms commencing on February 1st shall be made by the mayor between the previous November 1st and the organizational meeting of the town council. Clarification, in some cases, change in number of members and alternates as well. So this is crystal clear. There's nothing open for consideration during that time period. Then the last recommendation was the power of overrule of a town meeting action special town referendum. So we removed that the total number of votes cast be equal to at least 10% of the qualified electors of the town, and unless a majority of those persons voting thereon shall have voted in favor of overruling such action. The idea is if we're going to go through all the effort to have an actual referendum, we want the referendum to stand. We don't want to have to meet in a certain threshold number of voters, because we have to have, I think it's 3% to be able to petition to have the referendum. So we feel that it's prudent to not have the 10% restriction in place, because then it would all be for no point whatsoever. So we know it's been a long night. We'll be happy to answer any questions we have. I'm very appreciative of the time, talent, and treasure of all the members on the commission who've made me what it is.
Any questions for Councilman Smith?
Paul, to be clear with the budget now, you proposed that we set the budget, town council, and it goes right to referendum.
Board of Finance.
It goes to the
As it
Board of
does
Finance.
today.
As it does today. But in your recommendation, it won't, correct?
No, it
Or
won't.
it still does?
Yep.
Okay.
It's only if it's defeated.
It's only if it's defeated.
It goes to the Board of Finance, whereas
Back-
right now it goes to the council.
Okay, so it
So
goes
the
back
Board
to
of
them.
Finance would set the budget.
Okay,
If 5 members of the council felt that something needed to be done to that budget that the Board of Finance approved, they would have to petition to call a special meeting.
okay.
And then at that special meeting, 6 of 6 council members would have to vote to make the changes. So it's not a simple majority, it's 2/3.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Paul?
Katie?
Katie?
Excellent job.
Huh?
Great job
Thanks.
by you all.
I just want to get one thing out because it was interesting listening to you tonight. Because under appointed boards and commissions, we're recommending that the largest board and commission be 7 members with 3 alternates. So I just wanted you to know that because you were talking to 9 people tonight. So
Did you discuss permanent committees?
no, we were talking. No, well, actually, that is a permanent committee. It's appointed
Just
board.
permanent,
It's
7.
an appointed board, yeah. And there were 7.
So 7 with 3 alternates.
So I just thought that would be a good thing to toss out tonight.
Thanks.
This is like the
Yes.
That is.
Get your input.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Good stuff.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Ken, you got anything to add?
No, it's great, thank you.
Got it?
We just need a little bit of guidance on the P and Z.
Well,
Yeah, my only comment on that is, being on the other side of that table when someone's coming to the planning commission or zoning is that delay, and I don't know how you change it, but, and I was just as bad as, oh, well, we have 45 days, we want to decide, well, let's just push it off. Well, 30 days time for a builder is a lot of money, so whatever gets the process moving along is basically what I'm in favor of. And, you know, I know that's always going to be a complaint from every builder in the world, but if combining zoning and planning saves time, then I'd be for it.
The only time, planning, even if it was planning and zoning combined, you'd still have to get your subdivision approved under the statutory scheme. And then you get your zone, if it involves zoning permits.
Yeah.
You still have to follow the same time frames.
But the one thing
No,
that
zone changes would
On
be.
zone change, it's going to be just,
No,
you have to
zone
get the
change would be
recommendation from
accelerated,
planning.
yeah.
Well,
and the other thing too is we're,
So planning recommends to
if the
zone.
budget passes,
Planning to zone.
Right, I know currently 824.
right.
And zone changes.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, so then you don't do 824s anymore?
It would be done by the combined commission.
But the zoning commission can make a zone change without anybody checking, doing their
It
check
would be
and
a combined
balance.
commission.
That check and balance is gone at that point.
Yes, and that's
I think the feeling of the commission was that if we were looking at this blank slate, we would be recommending a combined planning and zoning. They're more efficient. Planning does the plan of conservation and development, zoning generally enforces that plan of conservation and development. So if it's the same, we're doing it. But, as Paul said at the beginning, we're not here to change things for the sake of changing things. We didn't hear anything where planning and zoning was broken. We had the planning commission chairman, the zoning commission chairman both didn't want to change things, which is not unusual. Most people don't want to change the current commission. So we were looking really to you to say, you know what, there are some efficiencies in having a combined planning and zoning. And if you felt strongly enough, we may come back and say, well, we've got a number of factors that we would recommend in favor of P and Z, but we weren't. Overall, we're not in the position of just changing things because we have a hard change. We didn't see anything wrong.
And I have a comment.
Katie?
Just, Mike, I understand where you're going. I was on planning for quite some time. And one of the things that slows things down is that in the days when we had a lot of planning things to take care of, we were meeting twice a month, and zoning was meeting twice a month. When things slow down, there's no meeting scheduled. If there was a standing twice a month meeting for both of these commissions, realizing at times, it's just a thought, they would not meet. But that is part of the slowdown. It's, if you can't get somebody to a zoning meeting for 29 days, that's a long wait. And I understand exactly, I've heard it from other people. So, that's something I think you have the right idea by not doing it for the sake of doing it, but I do think there are remedies for some of the problems we have. And I just think we have to listen to the people that come in a little more because they do have some good insights.
In addition, it appears that the boards are not filled, are not enough people.
Yeah, we didn't bring that up tonight.
Yeah, I know there's an opening.
We have an issue getting volunteers for both those
Right.
commissions.
And that makes it equally hard because they can't vote if there's no quorum.
Right.
Mike?
The one factor when I was on planning, I had it both ways. We at one point had no town employee at the planning meetings, and we were a very green planning commission when I was a senior member, 2 years, I think. But so we a lot of times didn't know how to proceed, and so then we got the town planner, and it did make things a lot easier. But this new budget is eliminating that position. That's one reason to combine this, so that you always have a town employee at the planning/zoning meeting, because there were times where, and no offense to Paul, but Paul would be the person in front of us telling us how to kind of proceed, because he was the only expert in the room. And I'm not saying that in a negative way or not, but he was really the only one that had enough knowledge to make that decision.
But don't you feel that as a commission member, that I beg to differ when he used to come before planning. When I was there, he wasn't the only smartest one in front of us.
Right.
He's
But
right.
I have gray hair now, thank you, Katie.
Huh?
I have gray hair now, thank you, Katie.
Well, that's true.
But
But
I was-
I think
I
it's
said that we
also
were
a
also
matter
new.
of how much, we need to fill the vacancies, number one, and I think that in any commission or board, you need to understand, and that's probably maybe part of the reason why we haven't filled some of these, that there are charges, there are responsibilities, there are things you need to learn, and I think perhaps sometimes we let those slide. But in the olden days, we had to know our stuff, so.
So kind of what you're looking for now, Paul, if I'm correct, is any other
We want
concerns
direction.
or direction
Tonight?
from the council? So if you guys could email
Oh, you
Councilman
don't want to say it.
Szymanski.
Actually, email, we have a group email,
Yes, you do.
instead of just emailing me. Matt, what's that email address?
Charter revision at newmilford.org, so.
This way it goes to all the members right away.
So if you have any thoughts, if you could opine.
And what's our
To the
time frame?
members?
What would you like those done?
June 20th is our next public hearing, so we'd like a week from tomorrow.
So you'd
Or
like to have them
Tuesday.
by the end of the week,
Yeah, that would be great.
which
So
is
any-
June the 15th, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Just back to my point, the planning commission, as of, if the budget passes, will be the only meeting that doesn't have the town employee at it.
No,
Is
that's
that
wrong.
correct?
No.
That's totally incorrect.
Who else, what other land uses, doesn't the zoning?
Conservation Commission doesn't have an employee at it. There's several other boards and commissions.
Aging?
Economic Development Commission, Commission on Aging. Does Youth Agency have Mark on it?
Well, I'm more talking about one week when we have to make decisions for the town.
Well, you can send your email.
Yeah. We want to hear from everyone.
Not to extend your meeting, but I mean, it would
They
be
don't want
good
to-
if you could hear from the entire town council, because, you know, if we get, I don't
Yes.
know,
Yes.
just personally,
Push.
if I get Mike that just says, yeah, I think it should be meetings, you know, like, okay, well, we got one of,
We want to hear from
we'd
everyone.
like to hear from
Right.
everybody, and if you guys have a consensus to say, you know what, we've been thinking about combined P and Z, and we think there are good reasons to do it, and we like the reasons that you've told us
Okay.
about, like.
Walter, are you in favor of it or not? Are you ready to make a decision? Can you let Ken and Paul know?
Sure, put me on this spot.
Sorry. We're all going to be put on the spot, Walter. You're just the first
Well,
one.
does he have the right to
I-
say he's not
I-
sure?
Yeah, that's what I just said. If he doesn't
Yeah.
want to say it, you don't have to. Want to think about it? You think about it.
I would rather sit on it.
Sure. Mike?
I'm just presenting,
Ken?
I'm just presenting
Mike?
a different opinion. I'm
Are
not
you-
saying I'm for or against, because I'm still not sure.
Okay.
But
Not
I just
sure.
want to give you the
That's
side
two not sure.
of mine.
Okay, so is anybody here sure? No one's sure. So sorry, Ken. So
Can I
send an email out.
I'd like to ask a question of the committee. When you asked us to opine by email about certain things, you asked our opinion as members of the council about the terms, et cetera, did all council, you don't have to name them, but did all council members respond to you?
No.
Okay, so say that email one more time.
Charter revision at newmilford.org.
Okay, let's move on to the next. Road closure.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Szymanski. Thank you very much. And thank you to the,
You want to take a 5-minute recess?
yep. We'll take a 5-minute recess?
Say,
Okay. 5-minute recess.
This is something. I do. Okay. I'd like to move to temporarily close the southern
Second.
crossover on Main Street on Friday, August 3rd, 2018, from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. for the VNA's 100th anniversary party.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I'd like to move the following resolution regarding the neglected cemetery account grant. Resolution authorizing Pete Bass, mayor of the town of New Milford, to apply for and accept on behalf of the town a grant from the neglected cemetery account. Mayor Bass is also authorized to enter into and execute any and all agreements, contracts, and documents necessary to obtain said grant should the town be selected for the grant award.
Second.
Any discussion? Tammy, did you want to say something since you?
So entertained by your discussions and presentations this evening, I would love to take a moment to explain to you what it is you're authorizing Mayor Bass to sign. I have discovered an OPM grant. It is Neglected Cemeteries Grant. It's a maximum of $2,000, and it can only be used for certain activities at neglected cemeteries that the state defines very strictly for me. as a burial ground or cemetery containing more than 6 places of interment, a burial ground or cemetery that is not under the control or management of any currently functioning cemetery association. That piece right there actually eliminates most of the cemeteries we do have here in town. Or, and a burial ground or cemetery which has been neglected and allowed to grow up to weeds, briars, and bushes, or about which the fences have become broken, decayed, or dilapidated. So the application that I am preparing to submit to OPM will contain $1,000 for the Long Mountain Cemetery and $1,000 for Lower Marial Cemetery, and that will be for trimming back and clearing of bushes and weeds, as well as straightening and resetting some of their memorial stones.
Anybody have any questions?
We're gonna trim the weed?
Bushes and weeds. Bushes and weeds, Walter.
I've been here a while, Walter.
It's that one weed they gotta trim.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you,
Thank
Tammy.
you.
Motion to accept June 2018 refunds in the amount of $6,299.62, leaving a balance of $1,801.33.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Move to create a temporary committee called the Equine Advisory Committee. This temporary committee will consist of 6 members with a term of 6 months. The Equine Advisory Committee shall provide an initial report to the Town Council within 3 months of establishment. The report shall address how the committee has met or will meet the goals noted below and the next steps. It is the goal of this Equine Advocacy Committee to do the following: educate the public on equine-related issues containing to economic value for horse owners and equestrians that they bring to our community, including the opportunities for horse-related events, tourism, horse facilities, including riding rings, horse farms, etc., and the opportunity for shared recreational trails such as horse, mountain bike, walking. And number 2, to explore the possibility for establishment of an independent equine advocacy organization that will work collaboratively with other organizations and town agencies to promote equine-related activities beneficial to town residents and visitors.
Second.
Thank you, Walter. So to just briefly tell the public, this was brought to my attention as we're looking to expand New Milford to be a destination point. We're looking at our increased walkways, trails, kayaking, all sorts of opportunities to bring more people to New Milford, and also the residents of New Milford to enjoy our wonderful resources. One that was brought to my attention as well is also the people that ride horses. There's wonderful places in New Milford where, given the opportunity, breathtaking views, great spots for, as I was made aware of, to ride your horse. So kind of the next step is to create this committee, this advocacy committee, to bring back to the council an opportunity that just can kind of dovetail in with the rest of our trails before. So I'd like to see if we could push this through with the council. If anybody has any questions?
Well, any questions? Some people have been patiently waiting. If you have any questions for them.
Yep. You guys want to
Come on up.
come on up? And if you could state your name.
Mark Burns, 6 Little Bear Hill Road.
Thank you.
Mayor Bass, town council persons. This has kind of been a little pet peeve of mine since I moved into town. I'm a horse owner. I keep my horse on my property. I love New Milford. I pay a reasonable amount of taxes to live here and enjoy the town. And I'm going to Washington and Southbury and Bridgewater and other surrounding communities to enjoy my horse. We're the largest municipality in the state. We've got a lot of open space. We've got a trail network as shown on that map. We've got, I forget how many miles, linear miles of dirt roads. There are just some safety concerns and some logistical concerns of getting horses off our private properties and getting them onto the roads and out into the public to enjoy the town and to have the town enjoy us. You know, it's nice to see a horse on the road. To back up against that, not only the people in town that own horses, as of 2009, there were $60 million worth of horses and horse-related businesses in Litchfield County. 67% of those horses were used for recreation. How many are currently on the roads in New Milford? When I go out, I only see my horse. I think it's a good opportunity on a lot of fronts for the town. There's economic development possibilities, equine tourism possibilities, recreational possibilities. I mean, the town stands to benefit as well as the townspeople from something like this. I mean, that's just my opinion. It might be a little biased, but there's a lot of positive opportunities in setting up a committee like this and letting us explore what we could do. And we could network with the other committees in town. I mean, we could piggyback right off them. We could share their load, you know, help them with some of the goals and objectives that they're working on, and they could do likewise with us. I think it's a win-win personally.
Yeah, for sure. You're a lot biased, but that's okay. I love horses too.
Hey, it is what it is, right?
What simple things can be done in order to actually allow you guys to start getting onto dirt roads and other things? I mean, is everything money, or is it more of creating some rules and?
Well, I think signage goes a long way. Yeah, horses on road, horse crossing. The biggest issue is bringing awareness to motor vehicle operators of the rights of horse owners and make them more of the fact that they're on the road. In Connecticut, a horse, or I believe any saddled animal, enjoys the same rights as a pedestrian on public roads. You know, you'd slow down for a person, hopefully, crossing the road. I mean, you should do likewise for horses. In some cases, that's not the situation. Public awareness would be one thing. Another thing would be like, all right, we have a lot of trailheads that are shown on that map. In some cases, they're dirt pull-offs. Increasing the size of the dirt pull-off to accommodate a truck and trailer.
Whereas like you can take your horse to Steep Rock and there's plenty of parking.
Oh, absolutely. I was there yesterday, as a matter of fact. Like, well, here's an example. We, my fiance and myself, we rode on Friday afternoon. We rode on Mud Pond Road, and rode down past Brahms Forge and down to the Merwinsville Hotel and what have you. Which it's great. The roads are awesome. We had to park on Camps Flats Road. It's pretty treacherous, to say the least. You know, if there's a town easement on the side of the road, I mean, it just simply to mow it, you know, so you could see if there are any sort of obstacles, anything that would puncture a tire or hurt a horse's foot or a human foot.
Katie?
Mark, do you know, you heard us talking tonight about the sharrows, which are for bikes and, in our multiple use area?
Yes.
Is a horse appropriate for riding in a sharrow?
That I don't know. I know that they're legally allowed in the state of Connecticut on public roads.
So that would be that's a pretty wide space.
Yeah, but I'm going to interject here. I'm not going to trailer my horse somewhere to ride on a road. I'm going to trailer my horse to ride on a dirt road back in nature, or
or a
But
soft
to get,
trail.
I mean, I'm talking about to get somewhere. If you couldn't find a place to put your trailer, I know you wouldn't want to just ride down Grove
you're
Street.
saying use one of those parking
Well,
spots.
I'm just
It would depend on how far.
asking. Yeah,
I would
right.
not
You wouldn't
ride
want to
a
go down
horse.
Grove Street or anything.
I would not ride a horse on Picket. I would ride it on Grove Street.
Exactly.
No way.
That's things you can bring back to the council.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
thank you.
Tom?
Would you also expand this out to looking at potentially encouraging a equestrian type of development where people would potentially develop a piece of property? I know there's not a lot of that going on right now.
Well,
but
let's
that
put it this
equestrian
way.
community.
If the town were to set up, say, well, there was an equestrian park in town at Old Town Farm at Clutter Valley. It's now a soccer field. They had at one time rated horse shows, large horse festivals and what have you, up until, I believe, about 25 years ago.
No, I'm thinking more in the terms of somebody doing a development that's geared to the horse community. Like, there's been a lot of that around the country where a person comes in and develops, they want to keep it more rural and more open as a farm, but would consider a common riding rink or common amenities for the horse owners.
Right.
So there's, you've got 10 houses, in the middle is large open space, you got the ability for trails,
I don't think that's Mark's intention, but if you need some ideas, I got plenty of them.
No, I'm just saying, would you consider that? Would it be something that you guys, as part of this committee, could expand out to discuss? I'm not saying
It's something, I'm sure it's something that could be looked
something that
at.
could be discussed.
Well,
Is there an
For the last 10
opportunity?
years, the entire equestrian community here in the town of New Milford.
Just state your name and your address.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chris Andrews, 52 Conley Road. Over the last 10 years, maybe even a little bit longer than 10 years, it might even be more like 15 at this point. I personally grew up in Danbury and I moved to New Milford because I've always been in the equestrian community. And I have now moved my horses and, you know, my equestrian work style. I'm going to Pauling, New York now, because the community is leaving the area because we're not doing anything for the equestrian community anymore. If we can show that there is a committee and we're making progress towards revitalizing the equestrian community in town, I think there's a huge opportunity for something along those lines. It's certainly something that's been looked at in other markets. There's one in Southbury. You know, working in real estate as well, there's absolutely opportunity for that in this market. But people are pushing out farther into Litchfield and over into the New York line that have horses, because somehow or another we lost what we've been known for, which is our rural feel. So I think something like this will help bring all that back into
Hence
town.
one of the reasons I brought it up.
Yes.
Because I think there's a great, you know,
Yes.
people
And
will,
we're
with
very
horses, spend a
fortunate.
lot of money locally.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think it's also another good, small portion of an economic driver for the town.
Absolutely.
So that's why I'd like you to just make it as, it could be a side note, it could be part of a future discussion, but it would be nice to know
No,
what
there's
those
certainly-
opportunities
There's
are.
certainly a few parcels in town left that would accommodate something along those lines as well. So.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Any other questions? So this is the
I would,
form.
may I ask this young lady?
Katie?
Just
Sure.
tell
This
us
is
your story.
Leslie Smith. I'm from 154 Aspetuck Village. I happen to be vice president on the Newtown Bridlelands Association. To her point, I had to leave town to go pursue my recreation with horses. And in working with the Newtown Bridlelands and with the town and the councils there, that town, because they have been so welcoming, we have over 20 miles of townwide trail. We've done what that trail committee's sort of proposing, ours just are not paved. We've made Newtown a destination for horse owners to move to, so that the properties are remaining in the rural horse community. To some get developed, of course. But that is still, the town of Newtown is a designated greenway and horse town. That has become a destination because they have become more horse friendly. So by opening up those doors and saying, hey, you can come ride on our dirt roads, you know, here's a little trailer pull off on an easement, you're opening up the community to outsiders who will then see this as their destination town and potentially move here.
Thank you.
And that's the point I was trying to get, is a simple things we can do as a town, is just start the process is what you kind of want to get at.
Right.
Any other questions?
Love it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You're about to get pointed next, by the way.
Yeah.
So that's the next one. You guys get appointed.
You know, it starts here,
Move to
next thing
create,
you're at town council.
move to
Exactly.
create equine advocacy committee appointments. Mark Burns, these are all a term of June 11th through December 10th of 2018. Mark Burns, unaffiliated. Leslie Smith, unaffiliated. Tim Rue, unaffiliated. Catherine Meyer, unaffiliated. Chris Andrews, Democrat. And asterisk appointment, Lisa Heda, Democrat.
And the reason for the asterisk was Lisa is going to kind of do an advisory role after, just to kind of help set up the committee, and then she'll bow off, and then there'll be another spot available once that happens.
Second?
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you're not a council person, you may want to check with the register of voters on the register of voters.
Are you?
Yes, I am.
Well, I certainly.
Thank you, Mr.
You live
Mayor.
down the road
Thank
from
you,
me.
I will check.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you for noting that. Are the other two, is that correct?
Unaffiliated.
You're unaffiliated? You're
Right.
Leslie?
Does the best job.
You're Leslie, right, and Chris?
Mine's correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move to
Thank
accept
you,
the
guys.
recommendation of the Job Description Subcommittee to accept the updated job descriptions of the following: the Assistant Sanitarian and the Sanitarian.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you to the Job Description Subcommittee.
Move to approve the Town of New Milford's participation in the 2018 Connecticut Neighborhood Assistance Act, also known as NAA, program, and authorization of applicant agencies.
Second.
So this was what we had our
Mhm.
public hearing
Beautiful.
on, and the culinary school uses this to help them and assist them. And we have a second from Walter, correct?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I'm abstaining.
Yep. Notice the abstention.
Item B, move to revert the current recycling fees back to those that were in effect prior to the April 23rd council approval.
The reason why this is on, can I have a second?
Second. Anybody?
Second. Thank you, Lisa. So basically, the reason why we brought this forward was in your package, you will see an email from Public Works. Let me see if I have the email here somewhere.
Oh, would you like a copy?
Yes, please.
From, there you
So
go.
this came from Laura, the administrative aide at Public Works, saying that town council will need to address any decisions or recommendations, and you can notice in the last paragraph, to recycling flyer into one of the meetings in June or July, FY change. We will just go with the flyer that was already approved on 4/23/18. As the council had serious questions concerning the fee structure, we created a recycling subcommittee. So the motion tonight from Ms. Francis is to continue with the same fee structure as we have currently, while the recycling committee looks to see how the operations are going, and then we'll report back to the town council where we can make adjustments if needed.
We were unable to meet due to a conflict of the date with the special town council meeting. That's the reason that we didn't meet to do this before, just so you know. We're not shirking our duties.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Move to accept the offer from the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority for New Milford to have police to join in or be part of the police home ownership program.
Second.
Thank you, Tom. I'd like to speak to that. So, as you have in your packet, the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, they offer special programs, mainly to first-time home buyers. They also have a special one for police, which I found very interesting and much needed for our town. So basically, this allows New Milford police officers the opportunity to purchase a home with little to no money down. Why is that important? It keeps our police officers vested and living in our town.
Yeah.
Certain towns you can see that are already participating are Bloomfield, Bridgeport, Cheshire, Danbury, East Haven, Enfield, Hamden, Hartford. The list goes on. I would like New Milford to be part of that.
Absolutely.
So with your permission, I would like to have us in here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And what I'm going to do is we have an actual thing to sign, and I'll just ask you through the week to come out and sign it. We can give it to Chap if that's okay with everybody.
How long for them to get their flyer updated with our name on it?
I will ask them as soon as we send it. It'll probably be kind of instantaneous because this is off the website, so they'll be able to do that. Okay.
Okay.
Next.
Move to put the council into executive session, calling in Attorney Grimes
Personnel.
Greg Valero.
and Greg Valero.
This is for the proposed dispatch contract, 2018 to 20.
Item A, proposed dispatcher contract works from 2018 to 2021. There is an error.
Tax assessor.
There is an error on your,
Agenda.
excuse me, I read that. Oh, 2021. That's a typo on our, what is on the contract is correct. Also like to ask Attorney Ms. Ken Taylor to join us.
Yep.
And the tax assessor.
No, that's for the different.
For later.
This is for the dispatch.
Sorry.
But if you're making the motion going for both, then we're going to invite Kathy into the second one.
Just making the motion to go into one. You want to make it to go into two, Mayor?
Do them one by one.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. Okay, let the record show we've returned from executive session. No motions were made, no votes were taken. All right. Everybody in agreement?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we extend for 10 minutes tonight's town council meeting.
Second.
Any discussion?
Aren't you good to 10:30?
It's 10:30, you changed it to 10:30 back in the...
We did? Okay, my apologies.
Would you like to?
I thought, no,
Write
we
it
did.
in.
I thought it was 10 o'clock.
Rescind your motion.
Write it in!
Withdraw
Okay.
your motion.
I thought it was 10.
All right, let's go.
Okay,
Stop doing this.
so, we're back in session. Item 18, action to approve the proposed dispatcher contract from 2018 to 2021 with below-market wage increases and additional savings to the town by moving to a new high-deductible HSA health plan. The negotiating committee recommends the town council authorize the mayor to execute the 3-year contract with the dispatchers.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I'd like to add to the agenda item 19.
Second.
She's gotta say it.
Let's say what it is.
Well, I would, somebody jumped in to take care of it before I got it. I'd like to add item number 19, a motion to amend the agenda to consider a tax assessment stipulation, and I'd like to define that a little bit more for anybody listening, that this is in regard to Kimberly Clark, a potential tax appeal and property tax reduction.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Whoa,
Mr.
Whoa.
Make the motion.
Whoa. I move to authorize Mayor Pete Bass to sign a stipulation with respect to the adjusted assessment for Kimberly Clark Corporation as recommended by the tax assessor and approved by the Board of Assessment Appeals.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody, for staying late. Thank you.